Chapter 1066. Seeing how ungrateful Zhao Fu was, the woman in black angrily harumphed and said, "Our young master treated him so well, yet he didn't accept it. He really doesn't know what's good for him. How could an ordinary person climb up the 10,000 dragon stage? Our young master has a pure king's bloodline, but he couldn't do it. How could he do it? He's going to make a fool of himself." Bing Qixue could not understand why Zhao Fu was so stubborn. Did he hate being friends with him that much? As for whether or not Zhao Fu could climb up the 10,000 dragon stage, Bing Qixue's answer was that it was impossible. He had personally tried it and knew that ordinary kings could not climb it. That terrifying power was something that even people with sovereign bloodlines would find difficult. Apart from bloodlines, there was also a person's fate, which required a massive amount of fate. It was not something that ordinary kings could have. No one knew why the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group had built such a stage. It was said that the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group had built it right after it had been established. No one knew what their goal was, but it seemed to be to verify a prophecy. Let's go and watch the show. There's actually someone who wants to climb up the 10,000 Dragon stage. He's looking to be humiliated. Let's see how high the heavens are. The people in the surroundings laughed as they said. Long Yang had a look of mockery and disdain. He had tried the 10,000 dragon stage and knew how terrifying it was. Zhao Fu was simply dreaming if he wanted to climb it. He did not know how Bing Qixue knew such an arrogant person. However, he didn't pick up the Cosmos medallion that he threw at him. It looks like he has some backbone. Let's see how he'll be humiliated. Thinking about that, Long Yang laughed as he said, "Let's go. You guys come with this young master to have a look." A beautiful woman next to him harumphed as she said, "Husband already knows the result. What's there to see? No matter how he compares, he can't compare to my husband. Wait until husband finds a final sister and cultivates the 8 dragons' divine art. You'll definitely be able to defeat that Bing Qixue." That's right. We believe that husband is the best. He hasn't even cultivated the divine art and is already ranked 19th. If he cultivates it, he'll definitely be in the top 5, another beautiful woman said. A dainty woman also said, "What a pity! Last time, I finally found a suitable one, but unfortunately, my virginity was taken by that bastard. What a pity, otherwise, my husband would have been able to cultivate the saint art long ago. I've waited for a long time. I've always wanted to do it with you. I want you to do it with me. I want you to play with me. It's best if you don't get out of bed for 3 days." A seductive woman licked her red lips and said. Long Yang laughed as he hugged the woman and kissed her, saying in a comforting tone, "This young master also wants to. Later, we'll continue to look for the 8th princess, and then this young master will let you all know what true bliss is." Zhao Fu followed the attendant towards the 10,000 dragon stage, and the others followed behind them. Not only did Long Yang go, but Bing Qixue also wanted to go and see what had happened. At the same time, he felt more and more curious about Zhao Fu. Looking at Zhao Fu, he definitely did not seem to be from the ancient STEM domain, as he did not know many things. However, most people in the ancient STEM domain knew about these things. The news of someone wanting to ascend the 10,000 dragon stage spread throughout the entire city, but no one reacted at all. After all, countless people had wanted to ascend the 10,000 dragon stage, but no one had been able to do so. No one paid too much attention to this, as everyone knew what the outcome would be. It was most likely another whimsical fellow who wanted to give it a try. After all, there were countless treasures on the 10,000 dragon stage, and anyone who could ascend it would obtain all of them. Just thinking about this made anyone feel excited, as this was something that would be incredibly profitable. There were many people who wanted to ascend the 10,000 dragon stage, so they naturally did not care about this news. After all, they could not possibly go to every single person who wanted to ascend the 10,000 dragon stage, right? They did not have the leisure to watch an ignorant minor figure lose face. However, when they heard that this person was related to the 9th-ranked Bing Qixue on the ancient STEM rankings, they immediately became interested. They also heard that he was related to the 19th-ranked Long Yang, making them unable to hold themselves back. They wondered what their relationship was and what that person's identity was. Since he was related to a major figure on the ancient STEM rankings, could he also be a major figure on the ancient STEM rankings? As such, everyone headed over to see those two major figures. As for Zhao Fu, he was just an extra. They did not have the mood to care about a nameless person. After walking for a while, everyone arrived in front of a large stone platform. This stone platform was 1,000 meters tall and several hundred meters wide. It was circular, and there were massive stone steps on it. Each step was 3 meters long and half a meter tall. There were also stone pillars on each flight of stone step. Lifelike dragons were carved on them, and each dragon seemed to be different. The stone stage was covered with terrifying restrictions, and it gave off an extremely dangerous aura. However, the restrictions gave off treasure lights, making it seem like a treasure trove, making countless people feel tempted. The 10,000 dragon stage gave off a majestic and domineering feeling, as if it really did have the might of 10,000 dragons. It seemed to shake the surroundings and cause all creatures to submit. The attendant brought Zhao Fu here and apologized to Zhao Fu before hurriedly leaving. He had never thought that such a big matter would occur, and he had to quickly report this matter. Before, he had only come to lead the way, and the manager had said that this was a big customer and that he had to take good care of him. On the way, he had tried his best to curry favor with Zhao Fu, but he had never thought that this matter would involve two geniuses on the ancient STEM rankings. This was completely beyond what he could accept, and he had to immediately report this matter. After hearing about this, the manager looked quite surprised. He had never thought that such a thing would happen. That mysterious person's identity was not simple at all. What was his goal in buying so many corpses? Since he was related to two people on the ancient STEM rankings, the manager could not help but feel quite concerned. Since Zhao Fu was buying corpses, perhaps he came from a large faction. It seemed that he had to take good care of this person in the future. Manager, what should we do now? That esteemed guest is about to step onto the 10,000 dragon stage, the attendant said as he looked at the contemplating manager. Hearing this, the manager lightly laughed and waved his hand, saying, "Don't worry about it. If he wants to try, let him try. The result will be the same anyway. Ever since the 10,000 dragon stage was built, no one has ever stepped onto it, as it's impossible. Back then, even the first president, who built the 10,000 dragon stage, couldn't do it. Who do you think can? As such, let him be. Just take good care of him in the future. Also, if he wants a Cosmos medallion, just look around the other branches and help him collect one in the future." Seeing that the manager was like this, the attendant felt much more at ease and nodded. Chapter 1067. Zhao Fu stood on the 10,000 dragon stage and calmly looked at the grand 10,000 dragon stage. He slowly breathed out and took his first step. The instant Zhao Fu's foot landed on the first step, a massive and ferocious aura rushed towards Zhao Fu. It was as if a river was surging towards him, and he was powerless to block it. Zhao Fu's gaze became serious as he exploded out with his own aura. It was like a massive mountain that split the river in half, and Zhao Fu's body did not move at all, looking like a statue. Following this, Zhao Fu's second foot stepped onto the first step. The people in the surroundings immediately felt quite interested. The first step was not so easy to climb, and the terrifying aura coming from the first step had stumped countless people. Most people would have been blasted away by that aura and crashed to the ground. Moreover, it was impossible to use City Lord Seal's power here, so one could only rely on one's own strength to ascend the 10,000 dragon stage. Now, everyone was quite interested because Zhao Fu had only climbed one step. There were 240 steps on the 10,000 dragon stage, and they were split into 8 difficulties, with 1 difficulty every 30 step. It could be said that it was quite monstrous. What happened next exceeded everyone's expectations. When Zhao Fu first stepped onto the first step, it was quite slow, but he quickly sped up. Second step, third step, fourth step, fifth step. Zhao Fu's speed was incredibly fast, and he continuously climbed up 29 steps. He was now in front of the 30th step, which was the first difficulty. Now everyone felt quite curious and wondered if Zhao Fu would be able to pass. With their strength, they definitely would not be able to. Bing Qixue watched seriously, and Long Yang and the 7 beauties next to him disdainfully laughed. Zhao Fu stopped here and understood that the 30th step was not simple at all. It gave off an even more powerful pressure, and it was many times more powerful than before. At that moment, Zhao Fu did not dare to be careless, and his expression became serious as he slowly stepped forwards. Immediately, Zhao Fu felt an enormous dragon pillar weighing down on his body. Everyone else saw this as well, and they saw an illusory dragon pillar that was dozens of meters long and gave off a silver light suddenly appear and ferociously press down on Zhao Fu's body. These dragon pillars were extremely powerful and not something that ordinary people could withstand. There had been people who had been crushed to death by these dragon pillars in the past, and this was the 10,000 dragon stages #1 ordeal. Everyone stared at Zhao Fu, not knowing how Zhao Fu would pass through. However, it would be quite difficult, as the dragon pillar's power was too great, causing Zhao Fu's waist to bend slightly. From this, it could be seen how difficult it was. Boom! Suddenly, a massive aura spread out as a black flame appeared around Zhao Fu's body. A wild gale blew out, and the illusory silver pillar of light was blasted away by the aura before dissipating. Everyone cried out, and they found that that person had not used his full strength just then. Sensing that terrifying aura, everyone felt quite shocked. This was definitely not something that a weakling could do. Ordinary people would forcibly resist the dragon pillar and step onto the 30th step. After stepping onto the 30th step, the dragon pillar would naturally disappear. However, this person had exploded out with such a terrifying aura and sent the dragon pillar flying. Very few people could do such a thing. This person was also an expert, and everyone became even more interested. Bing Qixue's expression remained serious, while Long Yang still looked quite disdainful. With his strength, he could also easily step onto the 30th step, and there was nothing much to say about this. The 31st step, the 32nd step, the 33rd step, the 34th step. After exploding out with that terrifying aura, Zhao Fu's speed once again increased, and he continuously stepped onto the 29th step, arriving at the 59th step. Everyone's hearts leapt into their throats as they watched how Zhao Fu would pass the second danger zone. Zhao Fu stepped out and the 10,000 dragon stage gave off a boundless aura, forming a 100-meter-long golden dragon claw that slammed towards Zhao Fu. The scene was incredibly terrifying. Just as the dragon claw was about to descend towards Zhao Fu, wanting to turn him into meat paste, Zhao Fu suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. At that moment, Zhao Fu gripped his fist and gave off a shocking aura as he vigorously punched towards the dragon claw. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as the dragon claw and Zhao Fu's fist collided and were instantly blasted apart by Zhao Fu's fist. The dragon claw turned into a powerful gale and blew away. So powerful! Everyone once again cried out as they stared at the scene on the 10,000 dragon stage in shock. There were no other words that could describe what they were seeing. Bing Qixue's serious expression also revealed a trace of shock, and the woman in black next to him was also quite shocked. Long Yang's expression also became more serious. With Zhao Fu's current strength, he would not be able to do anything to him. After stepping onto the 60th step, Zhao Fu's speed did not change, and he easily continued onwards without any obstructions. The 61st step, the 62nd step, the 63rd step, the 64th step. Following this, Zhao Fu came to the 89th step, which was the 90th step, the third danger zone. Everyone looked at Zhao Fu as he once again took that step. Roar! A dragon's roar sounded out in all directions as the dragon pillar gave off countless golden lights, forming a 100-meter-long golden dragon that gave off a terrifying aura as it ferociously rushed at Zhao Fu. Right now, nothing could be used on the 10,000 dragon stage, including Zhao Fu's sword and other equipment. He could only rely on his own power. Roar! A dragon's roar sounded out from within Zhao Fu's body as a savage and domineering black dragon came out of Zhao Fu's body, giving off a shocking aura as it rushed at the golden dragon, and the two dragons started to fight. Soon, the black dragon savagely tore apart the golden dragon and domineeringly roared before returning to Zhao Fu's body. So ferocious! So powerful! Everyone looked incredibly excited, and some people could not help but clap and cheer. Bing Qishua's expression became slightly serious, and the woman in black and the cold-looking young man also became serious as they looked at Zhao Fu on the 10,000 dragon stage. The condescension on Long Yang's face was no longer there. Back when he had stepped onto the third danger zone, it had not been so easy. The 7 women looked at Zhao Fu seriously and did not say anything. The 91st step, the 92nd step, the 93rd step, the 94th step. Zhao Fu once again stepped onto the 4th danger zone, which was the 119th step. He stepped out. Chapter 1068. Will that person be able to pass? This power is simply too shocking. Sensing this terrifying power, everyone felt quite nervous and did not have the confidence from before. They did not know if Zhao Fu would be able to pass. Bing Qishue, the woman in black, and the cold-looking young man watched seriously, wanting to see how Zhao Fu would deal with such terrifying power. This power was something that ordinary people on the ancient STEM rankings would not be able to withstand. Long Yang's expression was also quite serious. He had only broken through the 4th danger zone and had stopped before the 5th danger zone. If Zhao Fu could pass the 4th danger zone, he would have enough power to rival him. The 7 beautiful women beside him looked quite unsightly. Their husband was the young sect master of the 8 Dragons Essence sect, and he was one of the top geniuses in the ancient STEM domain. Not many people could compare to him, so how could this person who had suddenly appeared have such power? The attendant quickly went back to report to the steward that the esteemed guest had arrived at the 4th danger zone. The manager looked quite shocked. Zhao Fu had once again surpassed his expectations. However, after thinking about it, since that person had challenged the 10,000 dragon stage and was related to 2 geniuses on the ancient STEM rankings, he most likely would not be too weak. Thinking about that, the manager's expression became calm as he said, "Don't worry about it. He'll most likely retreat after reaching the 4th danger zone." Seeing this, the attendant did not feel too confident. He had already seen Zhao Fu's power, so perhaps he could pass the 4th danger zone. As such, he quickly rushed to the 10,000 dragon stage. The golden dragon pearl in the sky expanded out a dragon domain that looked like a golden semicircle, and there was a golden dragon swimming within it. The dragon domain was extremely powerful and gave off a massive aura of suppression as it blasted towards Zhao Fu like a hot knife through butter. Its power seemed to be able to destroy everything, and it was not something that anyone could defend against. Boom! An explosion sounded out as Zhao Fu exploded out with his full strength and spread out his emperor's domain. The golden domain and black domain ferociously clashed, resulting in a shocking shockwave. The people below the stage were all affected by the shockwaves, and some people were forced back a few steps while others fell to the ground. The scene became quite chaotic, and everyone looked quite shocked. Bang! The golden dragon orb gave off an even more intense light, and the golden dragon domain became many times stronger, bringing with it even greater power as it slammed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's emperor's domain started to crack, and Zhao Fu's body was sent flying backwards. Is it going to fail? When everyone saw this, they thought to themselves that the fourth danger zone was simply too powerful. However, in the next moment, 2 dragon roars rang out from Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu's body ignited with black flames, followed by purple flames. His body's power rapidly increased. Bang! The black domain suddenly exploded out with a terrifying power that slammed into the dragon domain like lightning, shattering the dragon domain into countless pieces. What's going on? Just then, 2 dragons' roars sounded out from his body, and that sudden burst of power. Why is there an emperor's aura that makes them want to kneel? Before anyone could understand what was going on, Zhao Fu shattered the dragon domain and continued forward. 121st steps, 122nd step, 123 steps, 124th step. Soon, Zhao Fu reached the 149th step. In front of him was the 10,000 Dragon Stage's 5th danger zone, and everyone nervously looked at Zhao Fu. Bing Qishue's expression became slightly serious. He had only broken through the 5th danger zone and had not broken through the 6th. If Zhao Fu could also break through the 5th danger zone, that would mean that Zhao Fu had the same power as him. Bing Qishue had already expected this, so he was not too surprised. What he cared about was the Emperor's aura that Zhao Fu had just released. This was not an ordinary matter. Long Yang's expression was quite unsightly. Zhao Fu actually had the power to rival him. He had been so disdainful before, but now, he had been slapping his face because Zhao Fu was not any weaker than him. The 7 beauties beside him quickly comforted him. At most, Zhao Fu would only be able to break through the 4th danger zone. Boom! When Zhao Fu's foot landed on the 150th step, the 10,000 Dragon Stage exploded out with a terrifying aura. The countless dragon pillars continuously trembled as half-human half-dragon figures appeared in front of him, giving off powerful auras. There were over 10,000 of them. After these half-human half-dragon monsters appeared, they ferociously charged at Zhao Fu. They were incredibly fast and looked like a torrent. Zhao Fu expressionlessly stood there and did not move. He stretched out a hand and exploded out with a terrifying aura as 2 aura flames appeared around his body. The 10,000 Dragon Stage seemed to be dyed black, and with Zhao Fu at the center, it was over 1,000 meters wide. Swish, swish, swish as the half-human half-dragon monsters rushed in, black spikes containing immense power stabbed out from the ground, piercing through the monsters. In that instant it was as if countless black spikes had grown on the 10,000 Dragon Stage, creating a shocking scene. Zhao Fu used his king's profoundness, which he had not used in a long time. All of the monsters were instantly killed, and Zhao Fu continued onwards. He's broken through the 5th danger zone. Someone cried out. By now, everyone no longer looked down on Zhao Fu. With Zhao Fu's current strength, no one doubted that he had the ability to stand on the genius rankings. Bing Qishue and the others' expressions became even more serious, while Long Yang and the 7 beauties' expressions became quite unsightly. It seemed that Zhao Fu's strength had already surpassed theirs. Manager, this is bad. That esteemed guest has broken through the 5th danger zone and is heading towards the 6th danger zone. The attendant could not help but quickly go back to report, and the manager looked quite shocked. Was that person really that powerful? It seemed that he had underestimated him. He had to go and take a look. Following this, the attendant and manager hurried towards the 10,000 Dragon Stage. Step 151st. Step 152nd. Step 153rd. Step 154th. At that moment, Zhao Fu felt a great deal of pressure and he slowed down. He walked up the stairs step by step and came to the 6th danger zone, which was before the 179th step. Everyone felt incredibly nervous and excited, hoping that Zhao Fu would be able to break through another danger zone. The sixth danger zone was something that only the top 3 people on the ancient STEM rankings could break through. It was impossible for anyone else. If Zhao Fu could break through the sixth danger zone, Zhao Fu would be able to enter the top 3 of the ancient STEM rankings and become a peerless genius that billions of people in the ancient STEM domain looked up to. Boom! Zhao Fu took another step, and the 10,000 dragon stage exploded out with an intense golden light. The heavens and earth dimmed as clouds swirled. Under this terrifying aura, everyone's bodies felt a chill and a wave of fear. Chapter 1069. Facing such terrifying eyes, everyone in the surroundings felt quite afraid and could not help but retreat. Their bodies slightly trembled. This was how terrifying the sixth danger zone was. This pair of dragon eyes is called the Dragon Eyes of Annihilation, and they were created by the 10,000 dragon stage after the Annihilation Dragon. The Annihilation Dragon is one of the most terrifying dragons in the world, and even though the 10,000 dragon stage is just an imitation, it can make even geniuses bow. The manager's eyes widened as he looked at the silver dragon eyes in the sky and could not help but explain. It could be seen just how shocked he was. Bing Qishua's expression became even more serious as he tried to guess at Zhao Fu's identity. Zhao Fu's power had already surpassed his, and he wondered if he would be able to break through the sixth danger zone and enter the top 3 of the genius rankings. The woman in black also looked quite fearful. She had never thought that this person's power would surpass her young master's. This was simply too shocking. However, no matter how powerful he was, his status was not as prestigious as her young master's. After all, her young master had a true royal bloodline, which reigned above all other bloodlines. In the ancient STEM domain, there was no one more prestigious than her young master. At most, Zhao Fu was a top-tier expert, while her young master was a sovereign king. They were not on the same level at all. Long Yang and the others' expressions became one of shock, because Zhao Fu's power not only surpassed their own but also surpassed Bing Qishua's. This made them feel much better, but they were still shocked by Zhao Fu's terrifying power. The pair of dragon eyes of annihilation slowly turned towards Zhao Fu, giving off an arrogant and condescending gaze. Space immediately started to collapse, causing yin and yang to reverse and laws to break. Zhao Fu immediately unleashed his emperor's domain to protect his body. However, under that terrifying gaze, the emperor's domain was unable to withstand it and started to crack and shatter. That terrifying power seeped in through the cracks and gradually tore at Zhao Fu's body. A trace of blood leaked out of Zhao Fu's mouth, causing Zhao Fu's gaze to become cold. Roar! 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 3 dragons' roars resounded through the sky, and the spiritual energy of the world quickly gathered. Then, a domineering black flame burned on Zhao Fu's body, followed by a mysterious purple flame, and then a cold gray flame. The 3 terrifying auras gathered together, causing Zhao Fu's power to rise to the extreme. Zhao Fu first closed his eyes, gathering all of his power into his eyes before slowly opening them. At that moment, the space within a 10,000-meter radius seemed to freeze. Countless people's hairs stood on end as they felt a chill in their hearts. The sky was torn apart and a pair of terrifying eyes appeared in the sky. The left eye actually had 6 pupils, each of which contained different powers and different auras. There was the aura of the devil race, the aura of slaughter, the aura of the heavenly Tao, the aura of disaster, the aura of destruction, and the aura of sealing. His right eye was just as terrifying, and it was a vertical pupil with 6 gray dots around it. It gave off an extremely cold and eerie aura, as if he was facing the 6 paths of reincarnation. How could there be such a terrifying pair of eyes in the world? The appearance of the dragon eye of annihilation had only caused everyone to feel fear and terror, but this pair of eyes was even more terrifying. It caused everyone to feel despair and their souls to tremble. It was as if under this gaze, not only would their bodies collapse, but their souls would also scatter. Bing Chishua's body also gave off a chilling intent. He was quite familiar with this chilling intent. It was the same feeling he had when he had first met Zhao Fu's gaze. This pair of terrifying eyes came from Zhao Fu. Now that he sensed his power, Bing Chishua felt a trace of fear, and the woman in black beside him looked quite terrified. Long Yang and the others also had looks of terror on their faces. How could that mysterious cloaked person have such terrifying power? They had a feeling that they had offended someone they shouldn't have. The experienced steward couldn't help but shiver. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva. What kind of eye is that? They're even more terrifying than the dragon eye of annihilation. The dragon eye of annihilation in the sky did not dare to look at that pair of terrifying eyes at all. It felt a sense of fear and automatically collapsed. In the end, Zhao Fu successfully stepped onto the 180th step, breaking through the 10,000 Dragon Seal's 6th danger zone, and he walked towards the 7th danger zone step by step. By now, Zhao Fu's body was under immense pressure with every step he took, and his speed became incredibly slow. He could only take one step every few minutes, and even though Zhao Fu's speed was slow, the countless people below held their breaths as they watched. If this person could really break through the 6th danger zone, his strength would be unimaginably terrifying. With those terrifying eyes, everyone felt that if this person wasn't number 1 on the ancient STEM rankings, he would be number 2. He definitely would not be number 3. Everyone felt boundless hope towards Zhao Fu. If he could break through the 7th danger zone, he would definitely be number 1 on the ancient STEM rankings. However, no one had broken through the 7th danger zone in hundreds of years. Could this person really break through it? Everyone thought about it and felt quite uncertain. At that moment, Bing Chishua, Long Yang, and the manager did not say anything as they stared at Zhao Fu. 181st step, 182nd step, 183rd step, 184th step. After a difficult process, Zhao Fu arrived at the 209th step. Ahead of him was the 7th danger zone, a place that no one had come to in hundreds of years. Zhao Fu deeply breathed in and raised his foot before slowly stepping on it. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as the 10,000 dragon stage exploded out with intense golden light, forming a golden pillar of light that gave off an unstoppable aura as it shot into the sky. The heavens and earth gradually darkened as wild gales started to blow. The clouds swirled as countless traces of spirit chi quickly gathered, forming a massive vortex in the sky that gave off an intense aura of suppression. From a distance, this place seemed to be covered by a layer of haze, and terrifying ripples spread out like shock waves, causing countless people's bodies to feel a chill. Is this the 7th danger zone? Below the 10,000 dragon stage, countless people looked at the sky in shock. They had never seen what the 7th danger zone was like before, as no one had come to the 7th danger zone in hundreds of years. Even the number 1 person on the ancient STEM rankings had not been able to do so. Roar! A massive dragon's roar sounded out from the center of the vortex, following which boundless golden light shot out. The clouds at the center of the vortex were dyed gold, and a figure giving off golden light slowly descended. This figure had a humanoid shape but a dragon's head. Its hands and legs were dragon claws, and its body was covered with golden dragon scales and a dragon tail. It was 6 meters tall and had a powerful body, and it held a dragon halberd. It's a dragon god. The 7th danger zone is actually a dragon god. Sensing that terrifying aura, everyone could not help but cry out. Of course, this was not a true dragon god, nor was it a godly spirit clone. It was something condensed from the heaven and earth power on the 10,000 dragon stage. Chapter 1070. The dragon god in the sky gave off an incredibly powerful aura, causing the space around it to freeze. It coldly looked at Zhao Fu and actually spoke. Lowly mortal, you're not a match for us. If you retreat, you can live. Everyone felt quite surprised that the dragon god could speak. However, Facing such a powerful dragon god, would that person still choose to continue? If it was them, they definitely would not continue. After all, being able to see the seventh danger zone was already enough. The dragon god's power was unimaginable, and it was not inferior to a true godly spirit descending. Bing Qixue hoped that Zhao Fu would continue because he wanted to see just how powerful Zhao Fu was. Thinking about that, even with his steady personality, he felt quite excited. He already admitted that he was inferior to Zhao Fu, and today, Zhao Fu's name would resound throughout the ancient STEM domain. The woman in black's expression was quite unsightly. She had never thought that a random person she had met in a restaurant would have such terrifying power. Thinking about what she had just said to Zhao Fu, her face became quite pale. The cold-looking young man inwardly cursed at himself for being completely attracted by Gunia. The other person was the truly terrifying one. No wonder their young master cared so much about him. Long Yang and the others all wanted to stealthily leave because Zhao Fu was simply too powerful. Perhaps he had quite a high status, and after what they had done to Zhao Fu, they had completely offended him. As such, it was best to leave as soon as possible. However, they also wanted to see if Zhao Fu had the ability to break through the seventh danger zone. They had long since felt that they were inferior to Zhao Fu, and they felt even more afraid of Zhao Fu. The manager focused his mind and looked at the figure on the stone step. Once he broke through the seventh danger zone, it would be an incredibly important matter and would far surpass what he could handle. After all, no one had broken through in hundreds of years. Humph. You're just something condensed from a magic formation. I've even killed a true godly spirit before. A cold harumph sounded out in the surroundings, causing everyone to be sent into an uproar as they looked at Zhao Fu in shock. Did he just say that he had killed a godly spirit before? Is that true? That's impossible, right? Of course, Zhao Fu had killed two gods before. One was the demon god and the other was the beast god. Of course, they were just clones. Zhao Fu had also obtained the god-killer profession, but he had fused it into his emperor profession. Arrogant! The dragon god in the sky roared, causing everyone's ears to feel pain. Following this, the dragon god swung its halberd, causing space to seem to explode as a terrifying energy blasted towards Zhao Fu like a superstorm. Zhao Fu's eyes lit up. Immediately, all of the magic formations around the 10,000 dragon stage were activated, protecting the city. Otherwise, the dragon god might destroy the entire city. Facing this terrifying wind, Zhao Fu immediately unleashed his emperor's domain. However, in front of this terrifying wind, Zhao Fu's emperor's domain was instantly shattered, and the wind caused Zhao Fu's body to feel as if it was going to be blown away. Boom! An explosion sounded out as 3 aura flames simultaneously burst forth, giving off powerful auras. The Emperor's domain once again spread out, defending against that terrifying gale. Lowly mortal, you shall suffer the wrath of a godly spirit. Seeing that Zhao Fu had blocked that attack, a trace of anger appeared on the dragon god's face. He once again attacked, raising his halberd and stabbing it towards Zhao Fu. Boom! A sharp light tore through space, bringing with it a destructive power as it slammed into Zhao Fu's emperor's domain like a bolt of lightning. Crack! A clear sound rang out as the terrifying sharp light slammed into Zhao Fu's emperor's domain, causing countless cracks to appear. Zhao Fu's body was forced back 5 or 6 steps before stopping. That dragon god is so terrifying. Seeing the dragon god's terrifying power, everyone felt incredibly shocked. If it was them, they would have long since been blasted into dust, and even their souls would have been destroyed. They would not have been able to resist at all. That person was indeed powerful, but it seemed that he was going to lose. No wonder no one had broken through the 7th danger zone in hundreds of years. Now everyone understood. However, for that person to be able to stand in front of the 7th danger zone was something to be proud of. It was likely that the number 1 person on the ancient STEM rankings would change, That person was definitely the number one person in the ancient STEM domain, and no one present had any objections to this. Is he really going to fail? Bing Qixue looked at Zhao Fu, feeling quite undecided. The dragon god's power was simply too great. Hurry up and give up, Long Yang inwardly yelled. Zhao Fu was already dangerous enough and could rank first on the ancient STEM rankings. If he could break through the 7th danger zone, he would be many times more dangerous, and they did not want to offend such a terrifying person. The manager anxiously waited for the result because this matter was incredibly important and could shake the 10,000 dragon financial group's upper echelons. Roar! The dragon god once again attacked. He raised his halberd and a golden dragon giving off a powerful aura appeared. Boom! The dragon god once again swung his halberd, and the golden dragon gave off destructive power, causing the space around it to tremble. It rushed towards Zhao Fu as if it could destroy everything. However, at that moment, Zhao Fu raised his head and a golden aura flame erupted around Zhao Fu's body. This aura flame was incredibly noble and destructive, and Zhao Fu's aura once again rose to its peak. Everyone looked incredibly shocked. They had never thought that Zhao Fu still had such power, and it was so terrifying. Facing the golden dragon, Zhao Fu grabbed at the air and the four-colored aura flame around his body gathered, forming a four-colored spear. Zhao Fu grabbed the four-colored spear and vigorously threw it out. Boom! The spear gave off an unstoppable aura as it slashed out, piercing through the golden dragon and giving off destructive power as it flew towards the dragon god. The dragon god coldly harumphed and slashed out with his halberd, sending out a golden crescent that split the four-colored spear in half, causing it to turn into four-colored flames and disappear. Foolish mortal, with your power, it's impossible for you to harm us. The dragon god raised his proud head and said condescendingly. Hearing this, Zhao Fu's terrifying eyes looked at the dragon god in the sky, and he gave a trace of a cold smile as he said, "Is that so?" Boom! At that moment, Zhao Fu exploded out with the power of the 4 fate dragons, and the four-colored aura flame around his body rose hundreds of meters into the air. An incredibly powerful aura spread out like a tornado, sweeping out in all directions and seeming unstoppable. It was not just everyone who sensed Zhao Fu's terrifying power in shock. Even the dragon god looked quite shocked. By now, Zhao Fu had become the center of the storm, and wild gales blew over. His body was a few centimeters off the ground, and his black cloak fluttered in the wind, causing the weather to change and clouds to swirl. Zhao Fu's terrifying eyes coldly looked at the dragon god in the sky as he slowly raised a hand and grabbed at the air. Clang, clang, clang. Chapter 1071. The dragon god was greatly startled and wanted to dodge, but there were chains everywhere and there was nowhere to dodge. He could only explode out with a powerful aura and continuously swing the dragon halberd in his hand, sending out golden crescent moons that destroyed the incoming chains. However, the chains seemed to be boundless, and they flooded towards the dragon god like a black tide. In the end, the dragon god was unable to resist and was bound up by the countless chains and hung in the sky. Because the king's crown had fused with Zhao Fu's bloodline and had become one of Zhao Fu's eyes, it could be counted as Zhao Fu's bloodline power. As such, the chains could be used. Everyone was dumbfounded. The dragon god, who was as powerful as a godly spirit, had been hung in the air by that person with countless chains. It could be said that he had lost all face, and to a godly spirit, this was a great humiliation. However, the scene of chains shooting out from the sky just now was extremely shocking. That person's strength was off the charts, and he had only just exploded out with his full strength, yet he could fight against a godly spirit. They were incredibly shocked, and they would never have such power in their entire lives. Boom! At that moment, a shocking explosion sounded out as the dragon god looked furious and exploded out with all of its power. Boundless golden light shined out from its body, covering the ground. From a distance, this place seemed to be covered by a layer of golden light, making it look like a land made of gold. The golden light flashed, looking quite shocking. The dragon god gave off boundless golden light, looking like a golden sun. Golden flames appeared around its body, and its aura could not be described with words. Even space started to twist and crack. Even with the magic formations, the people below the stage felt their bodies sink and their breathing become difficult. They could feel death approaching, and they could not help but retreat in terror. Bing Qixue and the others could not help but take a few steps back and look at the dragon god seriously. Its power had exceeded their expectations. Long Yang stared at the dragon god, hoping that it would become more powerful and kill that person here. That way, it would help him get rid of a threat. Facing such a powerful dragon god, that person would most likely lose. The manager watched on in shock, unable to say anything. Clang! The sound of metal shattering could be heard as the countless chains binding the dragon god started to break one by one, unable to withstand that terrifying power. Boom! Zhao Fu's expression did not change as he stretched out a hand and pointed it at the sky. A four-colored pillar of light containing terrifying power rushed into the sky, and the four colors started to spread across the sky. One was gold, one was black, one was gray, and one was violet, each taking up a side. Roar! 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 Four dragon roars resounded through the sky, causing blood to surge. Under the shocked gazes of countless people, four dragons of fate emerged from Zhao Fu's body and flew towards the four-colored pillar of light. Then, they slowly condensed into a dragon sword. The dragon sword was also four-colored, and there were four dragons coiled around the hilt. The sword was 1 meter long and was covered with dragon scales. It gave off an aura of annihilation, as if it could destroy the world. Zhao Fu raised his hand and grabbed the hilt of the sword. In that moment, everyone felt an incredibly dangerous feeling in their hearts. All of their hairs stood on end, and they felt as if their bodies had been submerged in icy water. They instinctively trembled and involuntarily retreated in fear. Sensing that sword's power, the dragon god in the sky looked terrified and exploded out with all of its power, wanting to break free from the chains. Boom! At that moment, Zhao Fu slashed out with his sword, causing a massive sword light to fly out with unimaginable power. The sun and moon dimmed, and time and space became chaotic. It was as if the heavens and earth were going to be split apart, and the golden sun was instantly slashed in half. The dragon god looked on in disbelief as its body had been slashed in half and turned into motes of golden light before disappearing. He's broken through the 7th danger zone. The people below the stage cried out excitedly, their voices echoing throughout the entire city. No one had broken through the 7th danger zone in hundreds of years, and now, someone had done so. He was the first person to do so in hundreds of years. Just who is this person? He's too powerful. So powerful, I feel incredibly excited just watching. That person is undoubtedly the top genius on the ancient STEM rankings. Everyone else should obediently make way. Today, this person will definitely be recorded in the ancient STEM domain's history. Not only will there be no one in the ancient STEM domain who can compare to him, but there won't be anyone in the surrounding domains who can either. I don't want to say anything. How can there be such a powerful person? He's definitely a peerless genius. Any other genius would pale in comparison to him. Bing Qixue also looked quite shocked. This was the first time he had revealed such an expression. Even though he had expected Zhao Fu to display such terrifying power, Zhao Fu had still exceeded his expectations. At the same time, Bing Qixue felt quite discouraged because he found that he was not on the same level as Zhao Fu. No wonder Zhao Fu did not want to be friends with him. He did not have the qualifications. The black-robed woman's face was filled with horror, and she didn't dare to say anything else. One of the 7 peerlessly beautiful women could not help but say in a soft voice, "Husband, there's no need to worry. Let's leave this place as soon as possible." Long Yang's expression was quite unsightly. Zhao Fu was simply too powerful and too dangerous, and if a conflict erupted, the outcome would be unimaginable. He might have made a massive enemy for the 8 Dragons Essence sect, so it was best to leave as soon as possible to prevent things from becoming too big. However, Long Yang still felt quite dissatisfied. There was actually such a huge disparity between him and Zhao Fu. The 10,000 Dragon stage still had the final danger zone, which no one had ever broken through before. It had always been a legend in the ancient STEM domain, and Long Yang did not believe that Zhao Fu would be able to break through it. Thinking about that, he decided to stay. The manager looked incredibly shocked and excited, and his voice trembled as he watched Zhao Fu break through the 7th danger zone. He said, "Hurry, hurry, hurry and report to the higher-ups of the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group that someone has broken through the 7th danger zone. We have to report this at all costs. I'll take responsibility for any consequences." The attendant felt that the matter was quite serious, so he hurriedly nodded and quickly left. Within the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group's headquarters, a group of powerful figures had been discussing matters in a large hall. One of them was an elegant-looking middle-aged man, and just as he was about to take a sip of his tea, a person suddenly rushed in from outside. The major figures slightly frowned. They were in the middle of a meeting, and someone had barged in like this. They naturally felt quite displeased. However, that person nervously said in shock, "Sir, someone has broken through the 7th danger zone. The 10,000 Dragon stage has broken through the 7th danger zone and is heading towards the 8th danger zone." What? Someone has broken through the 7th danger zone? This was something that hadn't happened in hundreds of years. Who was that person? Which faction's genius is he? Chapter 1072. They were naturally quite shocked and quite concerned about this. Just who could break through the 10,000 Dragon stage's 7th danger zone? Is he the person that the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group has been waiting for? The attendant nervously replied, "We don't know who he is, but he's related to 2 geniuses on the ancient STEM rankings. We don't know anything else." The elegant-looking middle-aged man was so shocked by this news that he almost dropped his teacup. At that moment, he looked at the others with a serious expression. Everyone understood what he meant and hurriedly turned into powerful rays of light and flew towards the 10,000 Dragon stage. Now that such a big thing had happened, they had to personally go and take a look. After all, the 10,000 Dragon stage was incredibly important to the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group. At that moment, Zhao Fu walked up step by step with great difficulty towards the final danger zone. Here, every step gave off an immense pressure, and ordinary people would be crushed into meat paste by this pressure. Powerful auras descended as the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group's higher-ups arrived. Looking at the black-cloaked figure on the steps, their expressions became serious and a trace of anticipation appeared in their eyes. Zhao Fu was the only person in the past few hundred years who had a trace of hope of breaking through the 8th danger zone. However, even if Zhao Fu could not break through the 8th danger zone, with his status as someone who had broken through the 7th danger zone, he was worth their attention. Seeing that the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group's higher-ups had arrived, everyone cried out. At the same time, news of the 10,000 Dragon stage's 7th danger zone quickly spread, shocking countless people and causing them to hurry over. More and more people gathered, forming a sea of people. There were at least 10 million people here. Under everyone's expectant gazes, Zhao Fu arrived before the 8th danger zone and stepped onto the final step. Immediately, everything in the heavens and earth froze in that instant, falling into deathly silence. Countless people felt as if they had been bound by a boundless, formless energy, and they could not move at all. They were as small and powerless as a grain of sand in an ocean. The 10,000 Dragon Financial Group's higher-ups looked incredibly shocked. Sensing the shocking ripples coming from the 10,000 Dragon stage, they were also bound. Boom! 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 The 10,000 dragon stage gave off a large amount of golden light, and the dragon pillars on it continuously trembled before exploding out with pillars of light that shot into the sky. Tens of thousands of pillars of light shot into the sky together, giving off sounds that shook the surroundings and caused countless people to feel quite shocked. From afar, it was even more shocking. Over 10,000 pillars of light gave off a world-shaking aura, standing tall between the heavens and the earth. Ao, 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 dragon roars sounded out from the stone pillars, and the dragons carved on the stone pillars seemed to come to life. They left the stone pillars and turned into different divine dragons that flew into the sky. Tens of thousands of dragons spiraled in the air, and the pressure of the dragons, which was like a vast sea of stars, pressed down on the countless people's bodies. They were unable to endure it, and they felt as if their bones were about to break. They could not help but continue to retreat. Now, no one dared to step within 1,000 meters of the 10,000 dragon stage, including Bing Qishue and the 10,000 dragon financial groups higher up. Fortunately, they were protected by the array formation, and the power was reduced by who knew how many times. However, it was still very terrifying, and it was not something they could withstand. Yet, Zhao Fu had to face this terrifying pressure alone. The 10,000 dragon stage was the 8th danger zone, and it was the final danger zone. Its power greatly surpassed that of a dragon god. Zhao Fu had already exploded out with the power of 4 fate dragons, but he still felt an immense pressure. His legs were bent, and it seemed like he was going to kneel on the stone steps. Blood leaked out of his body. Roar! The 10,000 dragons in the sky stopped and looked at Zhao Fu before giving off a heaven-shaking roar at Zhao Fu. The roar seemed corporeal and seemed to be able to destroy everything. Zhao Fu's emperor's domain was instantly shattered, and his body flew back 10 or so meters before crashing on the stone steps and coughing up a large mouthful of blood. He's done for. Everyone looked slightly disappointed. Seeing how heavily injured Zhao Fu was, it seemed that he would not be able to break through the 8th danger zone. The power of the 8th danger zone was something that even a true godly spirit would not be able to break through. However, for that person to break through the 7th danger zone was quite shocking. Bing Qishue did not say anything and looked at Zhao Fu seriously. Long Yang inwardly let out a sigh of relief. He was quite shocked that the 8th danger zone was truly terrifying. Zhao Fu still could not break through it, and it was not as terrifying as he had imagined. The 10,000 dragon financial groups higher-ups could not help but feel disappointed. Looks like we've failed again. Ever since the 10,000 dragon stage was constructed, it has been impossible to step onto it. Arg! Under the might of the 10,000 dragons, Zhao Fu felt his blood boil, and he could not help but roar. The Emperor's aura that he had been suppressing erupted out like a volcano. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out, seeming to shatter the heavens and earth. The surrounding space continuously collapsed, and a black and blood-red flame appeared around Zhao Fu's body. This was Zhao Fu's blood, and an Emperor's aura, as if he was the sovereign of the 9 heavens and 10 earth, pressed down like a massive hand. The people below the 10,000 dragon stage felt as if their minds had exploded, and their minds went blank. Their legs weakened as they knelt to the ground. Only Bing Qishue, Long Yang, and the higher-ups of the 10,000 dragon financial group were barely able to resist this Emperor's aura. No one else was able to resist at all. How is this possible? In front of this Supreme Emperor's aura, everyone looked incredibly shocked. Their souls were as weak as glass, and they were shattered by that Emperor's aura. That terrifying Emperor's aura flooded out in all directions, inundating region after region, and nothing could stop it. The Emperor's aura that seemed to rule the world and cause all creatures to submit covered the heavens and earth. Even the 10,000 dragons' aura seemed a few levels weaker in front of it, and it could not compare to it at all. Right now, it was the Supreme Emperor in everyone's hearts. Bing Qishue's face was pale, and he could guess at Zhao Fu's identity. With such a pure emperor's bloodline flowing through his body, he was definitely the legatee of an empire. His status was not something that Bing Qixue could compare to. In front of him, a prince of a royal kingdom was not much at all. No wonder he was so powerful, and no wonder he did not want to be friends with him even after knowing his identity. Now, Bing Qixue understood everything. Long Yang's expression was incredibly unsightly. Why had such a terrifying existence suddenly appeared? He had caused trouble this time, and it was possible that it would be a disaster. Why had he offended such a person? Long Yang felt incredibly regretful. Chapter 1073. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as Zhao Fu took a step forwards, and his massive emperor's might weighed down on the 10,000 dragons' bodies like the might of the heavens. Roar, roar, roar! That terrifying power caused the 10,000 dragons to look terrified, and their bodies slightly trembled. However, they were still unwilling to give up as they roared at Zhao Fu. Their roars caused the heavens and earth to tremble, but they were unable to stop Zhao Fu at all. Zhao Fu walked step by step as if he was taking a stroll, and when he reached the final step, the 10,000 dragons started to ferociously attack Zhao Fu. Boom! 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 The dragons exploded out with terrifying power, and their auras tore through the 9 heavens. At that moment, the 10,000 dragons all simultaneously attacked, rushing at Zhao Fu like a raging river. Zhao Fu's expression did not change at all as he raised his other foot and landed on the final step. Boom! In that moment, it was as if the heavens and earth were collapsing. An unimaginable might weighed down on the 10,000 dragons' bodies, causing them to howl as their bodies were directly crushed by that might. In just an instant, the 10,000 dragons were completely crushed by that shocking might, turning into motes of light that floated down, creating a beautiful scene. All of this signified that the 10,000 dragon stage had broken through the 8th danger zone. Zhao Fu's body was now completely on the 10,000 dragon stage. The aura flame and might around his body had completely disappeared, and he stood there like an ordinary person. However, the scene was deathly silent, and most people were still kneeling on the ground, not getting up. They looked at that person on the 10,000 dragon stage in shock. Even though he no longer had any aura, everyone still felt a formless pressure, and the image of a supreme emperor in their hearts could not be erased. Moreover, they were shocked that that person had broken through the 8th danger zone, and the identity that that person had revealed was not something that they could bear. It had been a long time since the 10,000 dragon stage had been constructed, but someone had finally broken through the 8th danger zone, breaking the legend of not being able to ascend the 10,000 dragon stage. However, only Zhao Fu could reach this step. It was almost impossible for the ancient stem domain to do so. The ancient stem domain did not have any empires, nor did the surrounding domains. This meant that Zhao Fu came from another place. The ancient stem rankings did not change at all. The number 1 person was still number 1, and the number 2 person was still number 2. Zhao Fu was not on the ancient stem rankings. It was not that Zhao Fu was not worthy of being on the ancient stem rankings, but that the ancient stem rankings were not worthy of his status. Countless royal kingdoms were existences that no one could reach, and an empire reigned above millions of royal kingdoms. They could not imagine just how terrifying an empire was, and even if he was asked to kneel down and pay his respects to the legatee, many people would willingly do so. Bing Qixue looked incredibly shocked, and he had not calmed down yet. After all, Zhao Fu had caused massive waves, and this time, he was completely convinced. Not only was Zhao Fu's status much more noble than his, but he was also much more powerful than him. Now, Bing Qixue understood his own limitations and understood that he did not have the qualifications to befriend Zhao Fu, so he did not plan to bother Zhao Fu anymore. The woman in black looked quite afraid. Thinking about how she had treated Zhao Fu, she felt that she had courted a great disaster. She had thought that Zhao Fu only had good talent and that he could not compare to her young master in terms of bloodline or status. In actuality, this was not wrong. There were only a few royal kingdoms in the ancient stem domain, and those people were equal at most. No one could surpass her young master. However, an imperial prince had suddenly appeared, which was quite terrifying. With such a terrifying status, he could be considered to have a noble status in the heaven-awakened world, and he was much more powerful than her young master. This was a massive slap to her face. The cold-looking young man turned to look at Gunia and could not help but sigh. No wonder he was so powerful in the way of the sword and was only a bodyguard. His master was simply too terrifying. Long Yang and the 7 women had long since left. Before anyone could react, it was best for them to leave. Otherwise, if Zhao Fu came to make trouble for them, they would be doomed. Zhao Fu's performance had surpassed Long Yang's expectations time and time again, and he had revealed such a terrifying identity. This had given him a big fright, and he could only dejectedly leave with his people. The manager also looked quite shocked. He had never thought that Zhao Fu would be so powerful and have such a prestigious status. He had even broken through the 10,000 Dragon Stage's 8th danger zone, and even the ancient STEM rankings could not contain such a grand figure. The 10 or so higher-ups of the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group also looked incredibly shocked, and they could not calm down for a long time. Someone had finally broken through the 10,000 Dragon Stage, and that prophecy was about to come true. Moreover, with Zhao Fu's status, they felt that he was too high for them. Looking at Zhao Fu on the 10,000 Dragon Stage, and looking at the countless treasures around him, Zhao Fu felt quite tempted. The intense light from the treasures caused Zhao Fu to feel quite panicked. Zhao Fu casually looked around and saw all sorts of legendary grade equipment, epic grade equipment, and saint armaments. There were also all sorts of spirit medicines, jewels with all sorts of stats, and many special items. The value of the things here was probably 6 or 7 billion gold coins, and they all belonged to him? This was simply too great of a surprise, and Zhao Fu almost did not dare to believe it was true. However, who cared? With so many treasures in front of him, he would be an idiot if he did not take them. Zhao Fu did not care about his image as he searched through the countless treasures on the stage. Large amounts of treasures disappeared from the 10,000 Dragon Stage and were all put into Zhao Fu's spatial ring. Even though Zhao Fu was incredibly fast, it took him half an hour to put all of the treasures into his spatial ring. Now, Zhao Fu wanted to wildly laugh. The benefits were simply too great. Climbing up a stage and obtaining a treasure trove was simply too great. Zhao Fu was willing to do this no matter how many times he had to do it. At that moment, no one said anything as they silently watched Zhao Fu loot the treasures. The 10,000 Dragon Financial Group's higher-ups also silently waited, allowing Zhao Fu to loot the treasures. After all, these treasures belonged to those who had passed the 8th danger zone. Back then, they had obeyed the orders of the previous generation and sent all sorts of treasures to the 10,000 Dragon Stage to attract people. As such, the 10,000 Dragon Stage stone was quite famous. After looting the countless treasures, Zhao Fu walked to the center of the 10,000 Dragon Stage. There was a fist-sized silver dragon pearl floating there. It was most likely the core of the 10,000 Dragon Stage. In actuality, Zhao Fu did not want to go over. After all, he had already taken all of their treasures, and if he wanted to destroy their stage, wouldn't that be too much? However, even though Zhao Fu did not want to go, the 10,000 Dragon Stage gave off a will, telling him to go over. Zhao Fu thought for a moment before walking over and placing his hand on the dragon pearl. Roar! Chapter 1074. Roar, roar, roar. Another dragon's roar sounded out from the dragon pillars on the 10,000 Dragon Stage. The dragon pillars violently trembled before cracking and turning into pieces of rubble. Dragon images flew out from within and flew towards the 10,000 dragon stage. The dragon pearl gave off an intense silver light that shined in all directions. Countless illusory dragons circled in the sky, and the scene of 10,000 dragons once again appeared. The aura they gave off was incredibly terrifying, causing everyone's bodies to stiffen. Suddenly, the silver dragon pearl broke free from Zhao Fu's hand and quickly entered Zhao Fu's body, causing Zhao Fu to feel quite startled and not do anything. At that moment, the countless dragons circling in the sky, giving off terrifying auras, rushed down and entered Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu felt a massive wave of dragon energy enter his body. This process was quite short, and after everything settled, Zhao Fu found that there was a silver dragon mark on his chest. Other than that, there were no other changes. The 10,000 dragon stage had lost all of its power and turned into an ordinary stone stage. One of the legends of the inner regions had disappeared. At that moment, the 10,000 dragon financial group's people respectfully walked over and bowed to Zhao Fu. This was because Zhao Fu had broken through the 8th danger zone and obtained the 10,000 Dragon Devil Pearl. It was also because of Zhao Fu's prestigious status that they had to bow to him. After all, an empire's power was not something they could resist. However, they did not know that Zhao Fu was not an imperial prince of an empire but a king of a marquisate kingdom. It was just that his bloodline was higher than theirs. This was all thanks to Zhao Fu's bloodline, which could instantly frighten a large group of people. Because of how terrifying his bloodline was, countless people were convinced that Zhao Fu was the imperial prince of an empire. Facing these people, Zhao Fu felt quite wary because these people all had powerful auras and were not people who could be easily offended. Only after seeing them bow did Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief. There most likely would not be a battle. I am the president of the 10,000 Dragon Association. It is my honor to meet the emperor, the elegant middle-aged man said with a faint smile. Zhao Fu nodded and thought about the dragon pearl and countless other treasures, and he asked guiltily, "Those treasures should be able to be taken by the people on the 10,000 dragon stage, right?" The middle-aged man laughed. "This does indeed belong to Emperor. I also have a request, and I wonder if Emperor will agree to become an elder of the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group. This is one of the benefits of ascending the 10,000 Dragon stage. If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely feel incredibly delighted about becoming an elder, as there would be unimaginable benefits. The 10,000 Dragon Financial Group was one of the largest financial groups in the ancient STEM domain, and its power was terrifying. However, now that the 10,000 Dragon Stage's higher-ups believed that Zhao Fu was an imperial prince, he naturally looked down on the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group, so they could only beg. Because Zhao Fu had obtained the 10,000 Dragon Devil Pearl, he had a great connection with the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group, so they wanted to get closer to him. At that moment, Zhao Fu inwardly laughed. He had never thought that there would be such benefits. If he became an elder of the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group, he would be able to use the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group's power to obtain a large number of corpses for him, allowing Qin's strength to quickly rise. With such great benefits, Zhao Fu definitely had to agree. However, he still calmly nodded on the surface. This caused everyone in the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group to smile. They felt incredibly happy that Zhao Fu had agreed to become an elder of the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group. This was because they already had a great connection with Zhao Fu and because of his prestigious status. After exchanging a few pleasantries, the elegant middle-aged man took out a silver dragon medallion and handed it to Zhao Fu, saying that this was a token of the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group and could be used to prove his identity. Zhao Fu accepted it, and the elegant middle-aged man said that he would entertain Zhao Fu. However, Zhao Fu refused because he did not like to entertain people. As everyone watched on, Zhao Fu came down from the 10,000 Dragon stage, and Gunia returned to Zhao Fu's side, doing his duty as a bodyguard. The people in the surroundings automatically made way for him, not daring to block him. Their gazes were filled with respect and worship. This was the legendary emperor. Bing Qixue tactfully led his people to the side, and did not dare to block him. Zhao Fu walked to his side and gave a trace of a smile as he said, "Apologies, I was helpless before. Previously I had no choice. Since Brother Bing has such a character, I actually want to make friends with you." Before, Zhao Fu did not want to make trouble, but he had still caused such a big commotion. Bing Qixue was quite a good person, especially since he was a prince of a royal kingdom. Perhaps he would be useful to Qin City in the future, so Zhao Fu wanted to make friends with him. Now, Bing Qixue felt quite flattered. He had never thought that Zhao Fu, who had not been interested in him before, would suddenly have a 180-degree change in attitude and take the initiative to make friends with him. Bing Qixue smiled and expressed his understanding. The woman in black next to him did not dare to say anything and obediently lowered her head, and the cold-looking young man did the same. Following this, the two of them returned to the restaurant and talked for a while, getting to know each other. Zhao Fu had the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group collect a large number of corpses for him, and they were very cheap. After dealing with this, Zhao Fu brought the countless treasures and corpses back to Qin City. At the same time, news of what had happened here quickly spread throughout the ancient STEM domain, causing the surroundings to shake. What? Not only has someone passed through the 10,000 Dragon Stage's 7th danger zone, but someone has also passed through the 8th danger zone? How is that possible? Is that something a human can do? After all, the 10,000 Dragon Stage was a wondrous thing in the ancient STEM domain, and many people knew about it and had personally tried it. They knew how terrifying the 10,000 Dragon Stage was. Now, someone had passed all of them. That person was simply too terrifying. The countless geniuses from the ancient STEM domain who had been to the 10,000 Dragon Stage were no longer as arrogant as before, and their expressions fell. How could that person have passed all of the danger zone? Even with their talent they could not do it, so how could that person do it? These geniuses did not believe this at all and felt that it was just a rumor. However, after sending people to investigate, they found out that it was actually true. What shocked them even more was that that person's true identity was an imperial prince of an empire. Why had such a prestigious person come to a small, remote domain like theirs? Everyone naturally did not understand. However, they accepted their loss wholeheartedly and did not throw a tantrum. After all, that person was an imperial prince, and the sovereign bloodline that flowed through his veins was enough to suppress countless kings. Countless people paid close attention to this matter and sent people over to investigate all the information. They also obtained all the information about what had happened. Chapter 1075. However, they did not have the 10,000 Dragon Stage. In actuality, they were quite curious as to why it had been built. There was definitely a great secret behind it, or else the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group would not place such importance on it. However, the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group kept it strictly confidential, and no one knew about it. After the Ice Origin Kingdom's higher-ups heard about this, they hurriedly summoned Bing Qixue and personally asked him about this matter. They treated this matter with great importance and greatly praised Bing Qixue for being able to befriend that person. The opposite happened in the 8 Dragons Essence sect. When they found out that their young sect master had dared to insult an empire's emperor, they were so scared that they immediately called Long Yang back to reprimand him, forbidding him from leaving the sect for a year. He had made too big of a deal. In front of an imperial prince, even royal kingdoms were quite pitiful, and the 8 Dragons Essence sect did not have the strength of a royal kingdom. Now, everyone in the 8 Dragons Essence sect was afraid that the Emperor's son would descend upon the 8 Dragons Essence sect and wreak havoc. Countless people were incredibly shocked by this matter, and it became a hot topic. However, the past few years had not been very peaceful, and many big things had happened, affecting some people's minds. Zhao Fu did not know about any of this, and after returning to Qin, he happily smiled and started to count his gains from the 10,000 dragon stage. There were so many treasures that they formed small mountains, and it was impossible for Zhao Fu to count them all by himself. As such, he could only call some other people to help him. Those people looked quite shocked. They did not know where their majesty had found such a treasure trove to obtain so many treasures. Zhao Fu first put away the Cosmos Medallion. In 2 years, he would be able to enter the Cosmos Historical Remnant, and perhaps there would be some gains there. After all, the Cosmos Medallion was one of the reasons why Zhao Fu had come to the 10,000 dragon stage. A few hours later, all of the treasures had been counted, and they were worth 8 billion gold coins. This completely exceeded what Zhao Fu had expected, and it was simply too shocking. This amount of gold coins was not a small amount for the entirety of Qin. Zhao Fu also found a few good things. The first item was a blueprint for the dragon-slaying ballistae. When combined with high-grade talisman bolts, the dragon-slaying ballistae's terrifying power could instantly kill city lords. Qin only had 100 of them, and after many battles, 10 or so of them had been destroyed. These were things that Qin couldn't make. They could only be obtained by opening treasure chests. They were also on the stone stele of troubled times. Unfortunately, he didn't exchange for them at that time. Now that he had it, Qin could create his own dragon-slaying ballistae. With it, Qin would have another powerful attack method. The second type was a type of bead formed from powder. It was as big as a longan fruit and gave off a strange fragrance. It was called a flower spirit bead and could help flowers grow. This could be used by the world flower. Zhao Fu had been nurturing the world flower this entire time, but it had never bloomed. Zhao Fu could not do anything about it, as the flower spirit pearl's effects were many times better than the 1,000 flower liquids. He hoped that it would be effective on the world flower and make it bloom sooner. The third type was a white dragon-shaped jade that was as big as a palm. It gave off a faint dragon's might, and it looked as if there really was a dragon within it. This was a dragon soul jade, which was said to be a jade condensed after a dragon died. It contained powerful dragon's power and could be used everywhere. Zhao Fu planned to use it on the Wyvern Den. It would most likely be quite effective. Because the Dragon Soul Jade was quite powerful and matched the Wyvern Den stats, fusing it into the Wyvern Den would definitely increase the Wyvern's power and the number of Wyverns they could spawn. Now that Qin had used the Wyvern Den on the battlefield, its effects were quite outstanding. It had suppressive power and had a great advantage in the air, making many things much more convenient. They had become Qin's representative war beasts, and it was necessary to continue developing them. There was also a horn that was 2 meters long and was quite thick. It looked like a beast's horn and gave off an aura of battle intent. This was the Berserk Beast Battle Horn, and it was a war treasure. During battle, it could greatly raise morale and allow soldiers to fight without fear of death. The last item was a white crystal the size of a grain of rice. Although it was very small, it gave off a weak white light. It did not look like a treasure, but rather an ordinary item. However, it was one of the most precious treasures out of all of them. Zhao Fu realized that this grain-sized crystal was actually a divinity shard and gave off a dense godly spirit aura. Even though its power was quite weak, it gave off a heartwarming feeling, and it was most likely a holy light divinity. Because Zhao Fu had the god-killer profession, he was incredibly sensitive to godly spirit auras, and he found that there was still a trace of consciousness within this shard. The golden dragon suddenly said, "Zhao Fu, you can nurture this as a godly spirit. Use incense and faith power to recover it, and it can become Qin's personal godly spirit. You should know the benefits of having a godly spirit. For example, the water god you nurtured gave all sorts of blessings. Also, the water god core will become stronger as she becomes stronger, and it will definitely become a top-tier core. Nurture Qin's personal godly spirit? A trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face. He thought about it and felt quite interested, so he agreed. He first gave the blueprints for the dragon-slaying ballistae to Bai Shan and had them research them, and Qin would do his best to support the dragon-slaying ballistae. Following this, Zhao Fu used the flower spirit pearl to cause the world flower to grow another 100 or so meters. The flower bud became even larger and greener, and it grew even bigger. However, the world flower was quite difficult to nurture, and Zhao Fu had spent a lot of effort and had even built a fountain of life around it to provide it with life force. However, it was still not enough. Following this, Zhao Fu fused the dragon soul jade into the wyvern den, strengthening the wyvern's body and allowing it to spawn 2 more wyverns every day. Finally, there was the divinity shard. According to the method that the golden dragon had given him, Zhao Fu first built a god temple and prepared a 2-meter wide light crystal. This crystal contained a large amount of holy light energy, and such a large piece was quite rare. Zhao Fu carefully fused the divinity shard into it, and the large light crystal immediately became extraordinary. It gave off a faint white light and a holy and pure aura. The crystal was now 2 meters tall and had an irregular shape. Zhao Fu did not know what the godly spirit would look like, as it needed the divinity to form its own shape. Now, he just had to wait for the faith power. Now that Qin's population had reached tens of billions, the amount of faith power he could gather would be massive. As long as Qin nurtured it, the divinity shard would develop quickly. Chapter 1076. Snowflakes danced in the air, and Qin City seemed to be covered by a layer of snow. Festive red lanterns were hung all over the streets, and every household had couplets and pictures of happy reunion. People walked to and fro on the streets, and their faces were filled with smiles. Zhao Fu stood on a tall building and looked down at the majestic scene of Qin City. The more he looked, the more he felt. Looking at the warm and happy families, Zhao Fu couldn't help but feel a trace of loneliness. It was the New Year, and on this day, Qin City stopped all activities. The New Year was one of the last festivals that Qin City would celebrate, and everything carried on China's traditions. Now that Qin City had unified China, it could only become a thing of the past. However, some survivors had escaped to other continents, and the countries and territories around China were all under the name of Qin City. It could be said that no one had been able to accomplish this almost impossible feat without the land of legacy and other worlds. Everything would have come to an end. Now, Qin City's regions had not been cleared out yet. Once the regions were cleared out, Qin City would launch the final war of unification, and the world would be at peace. Your Majesty! Hug! Little Nine, who was wearing a snow-white jacket, brought Little Rose up to a tall building. She held a rattle drum in one hand as she happily rushed over. Zhao Fu lightly smiled as he picked her up, and Little Rose, who was behind her, started to play in Zhao Fu's arms. Zhao Fu felt as if he had 2 little sisters, and this dispelled the trace of loneliness in Zhao Fu's heart. Your Majesty! The New Year's banquet is ready, and the ministers and generals have already arrived. Please return to the palace, Li Si said as he bowed. Zhao Fu nodded and suddenly asked, How are our grandpa and grandma? Li Si smiled as he replied, They're healthy and there's nothing wrong with them. I've been secretly taking care of them. Please rest assured, Your Majesty. Zhao Fu lightly nodded as he said, Then invite them to the palace to celebrate the new year together. Li Si smiled as he cupped his hands and replied, Yes, I'll immediately send people to invite them. In actuality, Li Si had long since expected Zhao Fu to do this. Even though Zhao Fu had said that he had cut off all ties with his grandmother's family, they were still related by blood. What Zhao Fu hated was his uncle's family, and it had nothing to do with his grandparent. Li Si had been secretly taking care of his grandparent. During this special festival, Li Si understood that Zhao Fu would feel lonely. He could not fill this loneliness, and no one else could fill this loneliness. He could not fill this of Fu of Qin. Everyone in the outside world said that His Majesty was cruel, bloodthirsty, and sometimes His Majesty was indeed like this. He could do anything to those outside of Great Qin, but he would always be soft-hearted towards those within Great Qin. Following this, Zhao Fu returned to the palace and celebrated the new year with the generals and ministers. He was incredibly happy and almost got drunk. 4 days later, Zhao Fu calmed himself down and headed to the fish scale world. Qin had signed a contract with the fish scale world that they would not start a war for 3 years. It was now the 6th year, and the contract would end next year. Zhao Fu's goal this time was to deal with the Dark Water continent. Qin now controlled 4,200 city lords, and 3,200 of them were controlled by Brainbug. There were 1,000 that were not controlled by Brainbug. The Dark Water continent had 6,000 regions in total and 19,000 or so city lord. Qin's 4,000 or so city lords took up almost a quarter of the total, and he had 2,000 or so territories. Zhao Fu felt that he could start a war to unify the Dark Water continent again. Because this was an internal war in the fish scale world, it would not cause as much of a commotion as the invasion, and the factions of the other continents would not interfere too much. This made it much easier for Zhao Fu to unify the Dark Water continent. Of course, because of the contract, Qin's forces could not enter the fish scale world, so Qin would not be able to do anything and could only rely on the Dark Water continent's own forces. Now, it was time to talk about the situation in the Dark Water continent. Almost 80% of system city lords had already joined the system factions that Great Qin secretly controlled. After all, having the status of a system main city gave them quite an advantage. After all, the world was split into 2 factions. One was the player faction, and the other was the system faction. By now, it was the players who had the advantage and conquered system main cities. If they wanted to be safe and not be destroyed by players, they could only band together. As such, Qin's faction had developed quite quickly in the Dark Water continent. Moreover, they did not suffer many losses in battle and could obtain all of the other side's forces, and the city lords could work for them. However, there were still 1,000 city lords that were not controlled, which was quite a big threat. However, there was nothing Zhao Fu could do about it. Without brain bugs, the Heaven Spirit Steel could only be used to trade, and ordinary gold coins had lost their value. Within the Heaven Spirit Steel, gold coins were just fees and could not be used to buy anything else. Zhao Fu did not want to pretend to be a higher being in the Heaven Spirit Steel, because without that kind of cultivation, it would be quite easy for him to be exposed. Moreover, Zhao Fu had never thought that he would attract the attention of a higher being. Zhao Fu had already added that higher being as a friend, but he did not dare to disturb him for no reason. As such, he collected all sorts of books for him. At first, he only collected books for comprehension, such as scriptures and Taoist scriptures. Afterwards, Zhao Fu found that this higher being loved to read all sorts of books, so Zhao Fu sent him China's 4 great classical novels: Dream of the Red Chamber, Journey to the West, Romance of the 3 Kingdoms, and Water Margin. Zhao Fu had never thought that the higher being would love to read Journey to the West, and he even asked Zhao Fu who had written it and wanted to meet him. There was nothing that Zhao Fu could do about this. The person who had written Journey to the West was someone from the Ming dynasty, so how could Zhao Fu find him? However, Journey to the West was the most popular of the 4 great classical novels, and it was the most popular book in the world. It had its own charm. Since he could not use his previous methods to obtain brain bugs, Zhao Fu could only use other things to exchange for them. With Qin's current wealth, this was not a big problem. Following this, Zhao Fu spent a great deal of effort to obtain 1,000 brain bugs and control the remaining 1,000 city lords. Now, this faction completely belonged to Qin. 4,200 city lords and 400 million soldiers. Just thinking about this could make anyone feel excited. With this kind of strength, unifying the Dark Water continent would not be very difficult. Even though it was only a quarter of the Dark Water continent's strength, Zhao Fu's faction was a group, while the other factions were still scattered. In fact, some factions did not even put in any effort and wanted to wait for the other factions to act. However, after thinking about it, Zhao Fu decided to slow down on unifying the Dark Water continent just in case, as he was worried that the other continents would interfere. This was mainly for safety reasons. Even if Qin's faction could unify the Dark Water continent, whether or not it would be able to defend and prevent others from attacking was another matter. Chapter 1077. Zhao Fu thought about it and felt that he needed a more detailed plan. As such, Zhao Fu returned to Qin City and discussed this with his generals before returning to the fish scale world. Zhao Fu immediately sent people to the various continents to send letters to the system main cities. The contents of the letters were naturally about how good Zhao Fu's faction was and how vicious the player faction was. He hoped that the various factions could unite together. Most people were still unwilling to leave their own continent. Everyone only knew of the existence of this faction. At the same time, they had never thought that a system faction in the Dark Water continent would become so powerful. This was simply too shocking, and they had no idea why. Zhao Fu had expected this, so he sent out countless letters. In the end, only 20 or so cities were willing to join Zhao Fu's faction, which was quite surprising. The reason these factions joined Zhao Fu's faction was because they could no longer stay in their original places. Some places had already been conquered by players, so they could only escape or submit to players. Some places were no longer peaceful, and they were worried about their safety, so they left early. Now, Zhao Fu was going to make it so that these system factions could no longer stay in their original places, so they would naturally join Zhao Fu's faction. As for what he was going to do, Zhao Fu had already thought of a way to make it seem like players were attacking system main cities. After scaring them, they would naturally obediently follow Zhao Fu's word. This would cost a lot of gold coins, as he needed to hire a large number of players. Even though Qin City's faction had a large number of players, most of them were the 4 billion fish-scale players that Zhao Fu had taken back from the southern continent. If he used so many players, it would definitely cause a massive commotion in the fish-scale world, and Zhao Fu's plan would be able to bear great fruit. However, these people already belonged to Qin City, so if he used them, others would naturally know that it was Qin City that had done this. There was also the issue of the contract. These fish-scale players were now Qin's subjects and could not go to other continents. Of course, other fish-scale people could not step into the Netherwater continent. By now, 80% of the Netherwater continent's regions had been cleared out by Qin, and this had taken a long time. After all, humans were land creatures, and it was inconvenient for them to enter the water. As such, many things had to be taken care of by the fish-scale people. Because there had been a crack, the fate of the fish-scale world had not melted, and the fate of the fish-scale world had been secretly absorbed by Qin. This time, Zhao Fu had brought over 1 billion gold coins, which was more than enough to hire players. 1 gold coin was equivalent to 10,000 copper coins, so it was quite tempting. Moreover, Zhao Fu didn't need them to do anything, so it should be quite easy to hire players. A small faction that had 10 or so system main cities gathered together and peacefully lived out their days, not wanting to have any dispute. However, on that day, the sounds of battle suddenly rang out in the surrounding 10 or so kilometers. A massive aura exploded out and spread out like a flood, causing all of the creatures in the surroundings to feel terrified and quickly run for their lives. Not good. A few million players are attacking. Seeing the dark mass of fish-scale players, the defending soldiers' faces paled as they cried out. Everyone else was the same. After all, they only had 1 million or so soldiers, and even though they had an advantage in cultivation, Facing a few million players would be quite difficult. Even if they could win, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. This immediately caused the entire city to go on alert. Soldiers rushed to the city walls and looked at the dark mass of fish-scale players seriously. The city lords also hurried over, and all of the residents started to worry. What's going on? Why are there so many players attacking? We've already hidden in such a remote place, and yet these players are still bothering us? They're going too far. A bearded city lord said angrily. Another city lord sighed as he said, no matter which continent or world it is, this is the trend. In the end, the players will be the ones to unify the world. After all, they have a massive amount of fate and they are the main characters of this world. A fish-scale woman's expression was cold as she said, are we really going to be destroyed by the players just like that? I don't want to accept this. Even if we're destroyed by them, we'll drag a few of them down with us. The elder standing next to her also sighed as he said, so what if you don't want to accept this? In the face of such a situation, all resistance is futile. Let's think about how to deal with these millions of players. Hearing this, everyone nodded. Indeed, now was not the time to discuss this. The city lords on the defensive walls had serious expressions on their faces as they prepared for a tough battle. However, what happened next exceeded their expectations because the ferocious army suddenly retreated halfway, causing the city lords to feel quite surprised. What was going on? Why did the army retreat again? The city lords looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. However, they felt that it was most likely a trap, so they did not leave the defensive walls. However, after waiting for a while and seeing that there was no reaction, everyone let out a sigh of relief. It seemed that the other side had truly retreated. Even though they did not know why, they had won without any losses, making everyone feel quite delighted. However, just as they were about to retreat and let down their guards, the player army once again ferociously charged out, loudly roaring and giving off a shocking aura. This caused the countless system main city soldiers to return to the defensive walls, waiting for the enemy army to arrive. The 10 or so city lords also focused and stared at the player army, making sure that they didn't use any other method. However, in the next second, the player army once again retreated. This caused the system main city's city lords to frown, not knowing what the player army's goal was. However, they definitely would not take the initiative to charge out. After all, they had the terrain advantage, and if they charged out, they would not have this advantage. Instead, they would be ambushed. This time, they waited on the defensive walls for a while, and after confirming that the player army would not come again, they decided to retreat. Kill! A terrifying aura once again swept out, causing the system main city soldiers to once again return to the defensive walls. They all became serious and on guard, but they also felt a trace of anger within their hearts. These people are so annoying. The 10 or so city lords all looked quite displeased. After being harassed like this again and again, no one would be in a good mood. This time, the player army once again retreated, and the 10 or so city lords could not help but fly out of the defensive walls to see what was going on. However, before they could even get close, 20 or so terrifying auras exploded out. The 10 or so city lords thought that there was an ambush, so they ran back in fear. Following this, the player army once again attacked and retreated, making the system main city's city lords feel quite angry. As for the people that Qin had hired, they did not directly participate in the battle. They only had to go over and say a few words before doing their own things. Some lay on the ground and slept, others ate and others chatted. Chapter 1078. After a while, someone shouted that the time was up. The people who were originally doing their own things gathered together again, roaring loudly as they charged towards the defensive wall. This time, the system side was prepared and did not retreat. Instead, they remained on the defensive wall, and some of the soldiers had already returned because it was impossible for all of them to remain on the defensive wall. Moreover, they needed to eat, as they had been fighting the player army for almost an entire day without eating anything. They also thought that this army was just a miscellaneous army that did not dare to attack them and would retreat after a while. They just wanted to harass them. This time, the person in charge of commanding the players saw that the system main city still hadn't responded, so he yelled, "Charge forward a bit more and retreat when you get close to the city walls. Everyone will be rewarded with 10 silver coins. Kill." Hearing that there were rewards, everyone became spirited and roared as they charged forwards, their auras even more ferocious than before. This gave the system side a big fright, and all of the soldiers once again gathered on the defensive wall, preparing to fight. However, the player army once again retreated. "I'm so angry. How about we charge out and fight with them? Let's kill all of these players," a city lord said angrily. He had had enough of being continuously harassed and provoked like this. An elder immediately said, "We can't. There were 20 or so city lords hidden in that army. This is clearly a trap. If we charge out, we'll definitely fall into a trap and suffer heavy losses." When they thought about that, they could only suppress their anger and think that everything would be fine. However, they had never thought that they would be angered to death in the next few days. Over the past few days, this group of soldiers had repeatedly harassed them, even coming out to challenge them to a fight. They loudly cursed the people in the city for being cowards, saying that they were a bunch of scoundrels who only knew how to hide in the city, not daring to come out and fight with them. This made the city lords feel incredibly angry, and they were even more certain that there was a trap outside. As such, they could not charge out. However, this group of people were like flies that continuously harassed them, making it difficult for the city lords to live, and they felt as if their heads were going to explode. They didn't know that as long as they rushed out, the motley army that Zhao Fu had gathered would scatter. These people were mainly here for money, and they didn't need to fight to obtain money. If their lives were in danger, they would have run away long ago. However, Zhao Fu also had other plans. If these people rushed out, then Zhao Fu would directly attack the city. Because Zhao Fu was using the forces of the Darkwater continent, this was not within the scope of the contract, so there was no problem. Is there any way to deal with these hateful players? I can't take it anymore. I want to rush out and kill those players. Not a single one of them is coming, or else I'm going to die from anger, a city lord said with a sullen expression. The surrounding city lords looked quite furious, wanting to kill the player army outside. However, it was quite dangerous outside, and if they charged out, they would be doomed. Just as the city lords were feeling vexed, a warm letter was delivered to them. This was naturally a letter from the Darkwater continent, and looking at this letter, the city lords felt quite tempted. A young man smiled as he said, "Do you think we should go to the Darkwater continent? Right now, the system main cities are madly suppressing players. If we go, we won't be harassed by players anymore, and we'll be the ones suppressing players in the future." Another city lord said in agreement, "I think that's a good idea. That's the world of system main cities, so it should be the best choice. Didn't we gather together for safety? Now that it's not safe here, we should move to the Darkwater continent." Yes, that's the best option right now. We can't afford to offend those players outside, so we can only hide. I completely agree with going to the Darkwater continent, another person said. After some discussion, the city lords decided to go to the Darkwater continent. However, there was a player army outside the city, so it would be difficult for them to move. It was possible that they would be attacked while they were moving. They were quite worried about this, and someone suggested, "Since we've decided to join the Darkwater continent, we'll be part of it in the future. How about we ask the Darkwater continent's people to help us? We'll see how they treat us. If they treat us well, it'll be better for us to go than to stay here. If they don't treat us well, we'll think of something else and not go to the Darkwater continent." Everyone nodded, agreeing with this suggestion. Following this, everyone wrote a letter. The Dark Water Continent's system main city faction was incredibly enthusiastic, and people came the next day. This shocked everyone, and they had never thought that the Dark Water Continent would take them so seriously. The people who came were even more enthusiastic, and made a series of promises as if they were the masters of this place, and they were the guests. Now that the Dark Water Continent was taking them seriously, they were naturally quite happy and felt that joining the Dark Water Continent was the right decision. Of course, they did not know that the mastermind behind all of this was Qin. With the Dark Water Continent's people defending them, they did not have to worry about anything else and just needed to move to the Dark Water Continent. Following this, even more people from the Dark Water Continent arrived, and the people here were able to relax and move to the Dark Water Continent. The player army, which had been harassing the system main cities, pretended to charge a few times, but they were all scared off by the Dark Water Continent's people. This allowed everyone to relax and not have any more worries. After coming to the Dark Water Continent and seeing how united and harmonious the system main cities were, they felt even more delighted. They had never thought that things would be so good, and they regretted coming too late. They did not know what they would face in the future. This was Zhao Fu's plan. He would be the bad guy in the dark while pretending to be the good guy in the open. He would harass and annoy the system main cities so that they would obediently enter Qin's mouth. Zhao Fu had spent 1 billion gold coins, but of course, he had not just hired these few people. Similar things were happening in other places, and he continued to harass and scare system main cities. Of course, Zhao Fu did not dare to offend the larger system factions, as they were quite powerful and could easily spiral out of control. As such, Zhao Fu specifically targeted smaller factions. It was also easier for these factions to succeed. Firstly, they were weak. Secondly, they were isolated and had no help. When faced with this kind of troublesome and unsolvable problem, there was nothing they could do. Chapter 1079. Seeing that Zhao Fu's faction was becoming stronger and stronger, the Dark Water Continent's people felt quite uneasy. On the second day, they decided to take the initiative and ally together to attack Zhao Fu's faction. After all, at this rate, Zhao Fu's faction would destroy them sooner or later. They had to act first, or else it would be too late. The remaining Darkwater city lords gathered together to discuss how to destroy Zhao Fu's faction. Now that Zhao Fu's faction had occupied a corner of the Darkwater continent, the remaining factions could split into 3 armies and simultaneously attack Zhao Fu's faction. This time, there were 10,000 or so city lords gathered, and they had 800 million soldiers. They had a great advantage. Because of this, the various factions felt much more confident, and they began to discuss their strategies and how to attack. Things are bad. The system main army is attacking the eastern side of the Darkwater continent. A soldier hurriedly rushed in and reported. What? Everyone was greatly shocked. They had never thought that the system main army would be the first to attack. They had gathered everyone to discuss how to destroy Zhao Fu's faction, and Zhao Fu naturally knew about such a big move. He understood that he could not wait any longer and had to act first. Most of the other factions' city lords were still discussing. Without city lords, their cities were quite empty, making them feel quite panicked. This was especially so for the eastern side that Zhao Fu's faction was attacking, and the city lords hurried back. The other factions also hurried back, preparing to gather their armies and head to the eastern side to destroy Zhao Fu's faction. However, just as they wanted to return to their cities, they found that there were many temporary isolation barriers, making it impossible for them to use teleportation channels to return to their cities. They could only rely on flying back. In the eastern side, Zhao Fu gave a trace of a cold smile. Qin had been ganged up on many times, so he had some countermeasures. Now, he had the strength to set up isolation barriers. Most of the city lords in the eastern side had not returned yet, and only a small portion of them remained. This was a great opportunity. First of all, their core members weren't there, so their morale wasn't very high. Secondly, they hadn't gathered together yet, and were still like a plate of loose sand. It would be a pity if they didn't attack at such a good opportunity. Zhao Fu directly brought 4,000 city lords and 400 million soldiers. 80% of their forces were gathered at the eastern side, and they planned to take down the eastern side as quickly as possible. That way, the pressure on them would be much lighter. There had originally been 2,000 or so city lords guarding the eastern side, but only 1,000 of them had hurried over. However, they could only mobilize 100 million soldiers. Time was of the essence, and Zhao Fu did not hesitate to give the order to attack. Because of the contract, Zhao Fu could not act personally, but he had brought 80 dragon-slaying ballistae. Right now, Qin was hurriedly building more dragon-slaying ballistae. However, dragon-slaying ballistae weren't things that could be made in a short period of time. These 80 dragon-slaying ballistae were from before. Apart from the dragon-slaying ballistae, Zhao Fu also had 120 destruction crystals. Kill! After receiving Zhao Fu's order, the city lords exploded out with terrifying auras as they rushed forwards. The countless soldiers below roared as they flooded forwards, giving off a shocking aura. The soldiers on the defensive wall waited, and the city lords in the sky became serious. The other side's forces were many times larger than theirs, and they could only stall for time until reinforcements arrived. As long as they arrived, victory would still be theirs. Boom! 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 Massive streaks of golden light tore through the sky with terrifying power. They were extremely fast, and they flashed by, leaving faint traces in the air. Chi! Before the 90 or so city lords could react, their chests were pierced by massive arrows. Some arrows even pierced through 2 city lords, nailing them to the ground a few kilometers away. The remaining city lords were dumbfounded. Before they could understand what had happened, nearly 100 city lords had died. However, in the next moment, something even more shocking happened. Bang! 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 Massive explosions sounded out as the rainbow-colored crystals smashed into the defensive wall, resulting in massive explosions. Terrifying shock waves blasted out, destroying everything in their path. In just an instant, the majestic defensive wall completely collapsed. The soldiers on the defensive wall were either dead or heavily injured, and blood dyed the surrounding water red. The scene was incredibly tragic and chilling. Charge! Zhao Fu's side gave off an unstoppable aura as they ferociously charged at the enemy. The eastern side had been heavily injured, and they did not even have a defensive wall left, so they could not resist at all. In the sky, Zhao Fu's city lords surrounded the enemy city lords, and behind them were the dragon-slaying ballistae, which continuously shot out terrifying arrows and gave off dangerous auras. Because both sides were already fighting, the dragon-slaying ballistae could only scatter the arrows and could not fire them all at once. The soldiers below started to fight with the remaining soldiers, but the other side could not resist at all. They had suffered heavy losses, and Zhao Fu's side had the advantage in numbers. More and more city lords and soldiers died, and their morale completely collapsed, and they started to run for their lives. Zhao Fu's side ferociously chased after them, not letting a single person escape. After these forces were destroyed by Zhao Fu's side, the remaining cities and regions naturally could not resist at all. Regions were easily destroyed by Zhao Fu's side, and after hearing that the front lines had been completely defeated, the eastern side's city lords hurriedly ran back. The eastern side did not dare to stay any longer and ran in other directions, and some people even ran to other continents. There were also many city lords who surrendered. Because Zhao Fu's side was a system faction, it was much more reliable than player factions, and most of the city lords who surrendered were system city lords. A day or so later, Zhao Fu's side had completely conquered the eastern side, and the other city lords had also broken through the defensive lines. They hurriedly led their soldiers to attack, but it was too late. There were 8,000 or so city lords and 600 million soldiers who had hurried over, But Zhao Fu's side quickly devoured the conquered regions and fused the surrendered factions into the army. The city lords and soldiers who had been staying at home also quickly rushed over. In total, Zhao Fu's side had 9,000 or so city lords and 600 million or so soldiers. Seeing that the system army had prepared, the various factions, which had been quite aggressive, did not have much confidence. If they fought now, they would not have any advantage at all, and they would be at a disadvantage. Chapter 1080. As the two armies faced off, Zhao Fu did not reveal himself and instead controlled everything from behind the scenes. The one commanding the battle was a mighty-looking fish-scale city lord, and he was the temporary leader of the system faction. His name was Vagrant, and he had long since been controlled by the brain bug. Because he had been chosen as the temporary leader and was an important item to hide his identity, Zhao Fu had increased the brain bug's power. He stood in the sky and gave off a massive aura as he looked at the opposing armies and gave a confident smile as he said loudly, "The Darkwada continent will belong to our system main cities sooner or later. You players should leave the Darkwada continent as soon as possible. Also, the system main cities on the other side, could it be that you're willing to work with those players? Or are you willing to join us? We're your system main cities, and we're your true friends. Leave those players and join us." A big man with a powerful aura coldly harumphed as he said, "Don't try to sow discord. Right now, you're the ones in the greatest danger, and we should work together. Also, this world belongs to players, so your system factions should submit to players instead of acting like this." Vagrant loudly laughed, "Ha ha, it's just the strong preying on the weak. What trend? Isn't it our system main cities conquering you players?" The big man felt quite furious. If they had a big advantage, they would have long since started fighting. However, they did not have any confidence, so they could only continue to stand like this. Both sides had about the same number of soldiers, and neither side could do anything to the other. Zhao Fu's side had the geographical advantage, so they naturally would not take the initiative to attack. They understood that if they fought, they would suffer great losses. Because of the contract, they could not attack, so they could not interfere in the battle. Both sides continued to face off, and the atmosphere became cold. It was as if neither side wanted to continue. A white-haired elder stepped out and tried to mediate, saying, "All right, we're all fish-scale people. We're all fish-scale people, so we shouldn't fight amongst ourselves and cause unnecessary losses. Do you still remember the owner of the Netherwater continent?" Hearing this, the atmosphere became deathly silent. Everyone's expressions became serious, and a trace of fear appeared in their eyes. The owner of the Netherwater continent was Qin, the incredibly powerful kingdom that had once caused the entire fish-scale world to fall into crisis. The Netherwater continent had been given to Qin after the fish-scale world had signed an unfair treaty. This could be said to be a humiliation to the fish-scale world, but no one dared to say anything. After all, Qin's power was incredibly terrifying. Now, Qin was said to be the fish-scale world's greatest threat, and no one could compare to him. This was something that everyone in the fish-scale world agreed with. That was why they had such expressions on their faces when they heard those words. Next to them was Qin. Although they had signed a 3-year contract and the two sides could not start a war, the contract would be invalid next year. Then, the Darkwada continent would have to face Qin directly. Thinking of Qin, who was so terrifying, no one felt confident. The old man looked at everyone in silence and continued in a serious tone, "That's right. It's Qin, the human world's Qin. With such a terrifying monster next to us, why are we fighting among ourselves? When Qin attacks, will we have the strength to resist?" Another middle-aged man in green also stepped out, saying, "That's right. Next to us is Qin, and when the 3-year contract expires next year, what should we do? Under Qin's ferocious might, the entire Darkwada continent might be destroyed. When that time comes, no one will be able to escape. We'll all die together, or we'll all become Qin's slaves. Is that what everyone wants to see? These words caused everyone to agree. They indeed did not want to end up like that. They're right. Our true enemy is the human world's Qin. That Qin is so terrifying, and with our strength, it will be very difficult to resist him. We should band together. I think we should stop fighting. The human world's Qin attacked our fish-scale world and caused us to suffer such humiliation. We should resist him. Let's band together and stop fighting among ourselves. If we don't band together, under Qin's threat, we might all die. When that time comes, we'll be the sinners of the fish-scale world. That's right, let's band together and stop fighting. That Qin is too terrifying, and we're not a match for him at all. Thinking about how he wanted to destroy the fish-scale world back then, I feel quite afraid. The scene was incredibly noisy, and many people could not help but speak up. They felt that Qin's threat was too terrifying, and the person they feared, Qin's ruler, was currently standing awkwardly within the crowd. In actuality, neither side wanted to continue fighting. The other side did not dare to attack, as it was quite disadvantageous, and Zhao Fu did not want to go either, as the losses would be too great. In actuality, Zhao Fu wanted to wait a bit longer, as there were still many system cities from other continents moving to the Darkwater continent. He would become stronger and stronger, and he would be able to convince the remaining system factions in the Darkwater continent, making the players weaker and weaker. When that time came, it would be incredibly easy for Zhao Fu to destroy them, and he would not have to pay such a heavy price. Zhao Fu knew that they would not be able to fight, but he had never thought that it would end like this. Seeing everyone talk about Qin as the ruler of Qin, Zhao Fu felt quite awkward. Lu Li, the city lord that Zhao Fu controlled, coldly harumphed and said, "For the future of the fish-scale world, and for all fish-scale people, I can stop attacking for now, but some people shouldn't start fighting." Zhao Fu had Lu Li speak first, which was to stand on the side of righteousness and give off a righteous and benevolent light. This made the players inwardly curse Lu Li for being shameless. They had wanted to speak as well, as that would make others feel that they were on the side of righteousness and that they were taking a step back for the sake of the fish-scale world. Saying this would make them look even more arrogant, and those who spoke later naturally would not have such an effect. If they still objected, they would be called stupid, selfish, evil, and vile. The players could only follow Zhao Fu's lead and say a few words. They did not want to continue fighting, and this was to give themselves a way out of this embarrassing situation. The two sides did not continue to talk in detail, and they drew a line between the two factions. In the future, neither side would offend the other, and both sides retreated. That being said, well water does not interfere with river water, but after returning, both sides greatly increased their own strength. Chapter 1081. Zhao Fu set up a large number of soldiers at the border and did not bother with them anymore. He understood that the other side would not dare to attack, and he could only focus on expanding his own faction. After Zhao Fu continuously used those despicable methods, the effects were quite effective, and there were hundreds of city lords joining every day. Even though the other side was desperately trying to pull people into their faction, their expansion speed could not compare to Zhao Fu's. Zhao Fu's faction would definitely far surpass theirs, and unifying the Darkwater continent was already a foregone conclusion, so there was nothing to worry about. Zhao Fu stayed here for a few more days, and seeing that the situation had stabilized, he once again returned to Qin. By now, Qin had finished celebrating the new year, and it was now in full swing. The soldiers started to clear out regions, and the various departments were doing their jobs. There was nothing to do in many places, so they settled down and started to take care of matters. Zhao Fu looked through the memorials that he had accumulated over the past few days and found that a few of the ministers had suggested improving the commoner system. The reason was that even though they were punishing the commoners, it would not be beneficial to the unity of the country. There were also many loopholes in the process of raising the commoners from untouchables to commoners, and there was no effective supervision. Many people used this for profit, causing some resentment among the commoners. As such, the ministers requested that Your Majesty reconsider the commoner system. After looking through the memorials, Zhao Fu frowned. Even though the memorials said that they wanted to improve the commoner system, they wanted to abolish the commoner system. It was just that they did not dare to directly suggest this to him, so they used this tactful method. Should we abolish the commoner system? Zhao Fu sat on his throne and fell into deep thought. Zhao Fu felt quite hesitant. Back then, the commoner system had been established to punish the resisting races and factions. Their resistance had caused Qin to suffer heavy losses, but Zhao Fu had not killed them or treated them as slaves. This was already quite good. They had to be punished, or else the blood of Qin's soldiers would have been spilled for nothing. Zhao Fu naturally felt quite angry towards these people. However, from the contents of the memorials, there were indeed all sorts of problems and hidden dangers. In the end, Zhao Fu could not make a decision, so he gathered the ministers to discuss and gather their opinions. Most of the ministers were civil officials, while the generals were fighting at the front lines. The ministers' opinions were divided into two sides. One side supported Zhao Fu's idea, and most of them were outlanders and of outlanders, with Gyuri as the leader. Gyuri was from the cat race and was originally a city lord of a small city. He had been after Qin's city, and he had been promoted over the past few years. He had become an important minister of Qin. A Fu of Gyuri was of Fu. Their opinion was that the criminals wanted to resist Great Qin, making Great Qin spend more effort to conquer them. They deserved it, so they should be punished accordingly. Instead of enslaving them, His Majesty has given them the opportunity to rise in ranks, which is already quite merciful. From how we see it, they should forever be commoners, and their children should also be commoners. The weak should submit to the strong. Moreover, those who have not resisted and joined Qin will receive the status of ordinary commoners in Qin. However, those who have resisted and joined Qin will receive the same treatment, which will be unfair to those who have not resisted. In the future, they would be met with even greater resistance. They knew that if they resisted, they would become Great Qin's peasants, so seeing how powerful Great Qin was, they would obediently submit. However, if they knew that they would receive the same treatment if they resisted, they would definitely try to resist. Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded. This was what he was thinking. However, slavery was different from Zhao Fu's, so he would not establish it. However, if they knew that they would receive the same treatment if they resisted, they would definitely try to resist. Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded. He agreed with Zhao Fu. However, the slavery system was different from Zhao Fu's, so it was impossible to establish it. Zhao Fu had his own bottom line. Seeing Zhao Fu agree to not abolish the commoner system, the ministers who supported the abolition of the commoner system changed their expressions. They immediately stood out to express their opinions. Most of the ministers were from Huaxia, and they were from various sections. Because Qin gave up on punishing the Confucian school, the Maoist school, and the Buddhist school, some important figures from the three sects had returned to Huaxia from other continents and were willing to serve Qin. Their opinions were that His Majesty was a wise king. Historically speaking, the primitive society started with slavery, and then with feudalism. The reason why slavery was eventually replaced by feudalism was that slavery would make the country unstable and cause all kinds of class conflicts, which would lead to constant resistance and the country's demise. Although His Majesty's commoner system wasn't slavery, it would cause many conflicts, which wouldn't make the people completely loyal to Qin, and it wouldn't be good for the unity of the country. As such, everyone who served Qin should be treated the same way. I think that His Majesty should abolish the commoner system, which would be a great hidden danger for Qin. As for what Minister Gu said, there was another way to solve it. After hearing what Minister Gu said, Zhao Fu felt that Minister Gu's words made sense. Now that both sides were in the right, which side should he listen to? Zhao Fu couldn't help but look at Li Si, who was Qin's prime minister. Li Si cupped his hands and said with a faint smile, "Everything is up to your majesty." Li Si threw the ball back to Zhao Fu, causing Zhao Fu to glare at him. At this moment, Li Muqing stood out and said, "Your Majesty, please leave the throne and go to the common people to have a look. You should have a decision by then, instead of hesitating here." "How dare you? His Majesty's status is so noble, how can he be with those commoners? Minister Li dares to blaspheme His Majesty? Do you know what punishment you deserve?" A minister immediately berated before saying, "This isn't the democratic system in the real world. It's an imperial system where His Majesty is the leader. His Majesty is the leader, and the commoners are secondary. If Minister Li wants to do things through a democratic system, he might be subverting the Qin Empire." This caused some of the players' expressions to become serious. This was quite a big accusation, and they had wanted to do things through a democratic system, which was not suitable. The expressions of Li Muqing and the players' ministers slightly changed, and the indigenous residents' ministers also looked at these people. Zhao Fu felt quite startled and looked at everyone present. He found that he had not paid much attention to politics, and there seemed to be many factions in the imperial court. Because of the minister's words, the palace fell silent, and the atmosphere became quite tense. Chapter 1082. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, none of the ministers present dared to object. They all nodded and accepted all of Zhao Fu's orders. Li Muqing and the other players let out sighs of relief. Luckily, Zhao Fu wasn't a member of a big family or an indigenous person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such an attitude. Following this, Zhao Fu changed into simple clothes and left the palace with Li Muqing. At a construction site for building a canal, Zhao Fu watched sweaty men digging the canal and carrying stones and soil. Now that he had a storage ring, it was more convenient for him to deal with these things. After picking out the stones and soil, he could put them into a storage ring and carry them away. The materials for building the canal were also put aside through the storage ring. The canal was being built in full swing. According to the hierarchy system in Qin, untouchables could work for the Qin government and help the Qin government with various constructions to earn points, which could be used to raise their status and level. These people were all untouchables, and they wanted to earn points by building the canal for the Qin government. Of course, the Qin government would also pay them accordingly. Suddenly, an honest-looking man who was carrying a pole bumped into Zhao Fu by accident, and some soil fell on Zhao Fu. The man's face turned pale, and he immediately apologized. "I'm sorry. Sir, I didn't do it on purpose. I'll clean it up immediately." "Humph! How can an untouchable commoner like you touch this sir's clothes?" A man who looked like a foreman walked over and coldly harumphed. Although Zhao Fu thought that his clothes were ordinary in the eyes of others, his clothes were luxurious, and he had an extraordinary aura. The honest-looking man didn't expect that he would disturb the foreman, and his face became even paler. He wanted to explain that he really didn't do it on purpose. However, the foreman cut off the honest-looking man and said, "Do you know who this young master is? He's definitely a noble of Great Qin. With your status as peasants, hurry up and kneel down, or I'll teach you a lesson." Hearing this, the simple and honest man looked at Zhao Fu's clothes and immediately knelt on the ground. He kowtowed and said, "I'm sorry, young master. I'm truly sorry. Please forgive this lowly one." The foreman smiled apologetically and said, "Young master, please let him go this time. I'll help you clean the mud off your body." Zhao Fu was a little surprised. This foreman looked fierce and barbaric, but he didn't expect him to be helping a simple and honest man. "It's fine. It's just a small matter. I don't mind. Also, why are you all so afraid?" Zhao Fu was quite confused. It was just a small matter, but the other party seemed to be too afraid, as if he was worried about something. The foreman didn't know how to answer. He could tell that Zhao Fu was a rich young master who didn't know much about the world and didn't understand the current situation in Qin. However, he was slightly relieved by Zhao Fu's kind attitude. Fortunately, Zhao Fu was easy to deal with. Li Muqing explained, untouchables like him will be punished more if they cause trouble. They may also be recorded in the files and won't be able to get any points. They may be untouchables for the rest of their lives. That's why they are afraid. They are especially afraid of nobles like you, because they can't afford to offend you. The foreman said with a smile, "This beautiful lady is very sensible. I spent a lot of effort to be promoted from an untouchable to a commoner. If I cause trouble, it will all be in vain. In Qin, we are all labeled, and any mistake we make will be more serious." Zhao Fu nodded. It seemed that he was the one who had given the order. He had to punish them severely in order to make them afraid and obedient. It was mainly because they had resisted so fiercely, so Zhao Fu had to deal with them in various ways. The foreman said, "Then why did you come here? With your status, you shouldn't come here, lest people laugh at you." Zhao Fu was startled and asked, "Why do you say that? Why do you want to be laughed at?" The foreman was also startled. He didn't expect Zhao Fu to ask this question. He thought that Zhao Fu was really a rich young master and didn't understand this. He smiled and replied, "This is a place where untouchables gather. Nobles like you will be infected with bad luck if you come here." Zhao Fu frowned and turned to look at Li Muqing as he asked, "Why has the hierarchy in Qin become so strict? Upper-class people are upper-class people, and lower-class people are lower-class people." Zhao Fu didn't expect that this wasn't his original goal. As long as they became Qin's subjects, Zhao Fu would treat them equally. Zhao Fu wanted to punish these untouchables and then become Qin's subjects. As long as they sincerely submitted to Qin, Zhao Fu would treat them with sincerity. However, the current situation in Qin had become like this, just like the outside world. This was not what Zhao Fu wanted to see in Qin. Thinking about this, Zhao Fu's expression became quite unsightly as he said, "Can you show me around? I want to know more about this place." The foreman looked surprised and smiled as he said, "Sir, you're quite interesting. Why do you want to know more about us untouchables?" Zhao Fu lightly nodded as he said, "I just want to know more about this place. I'll give you a reward afterwards." The foreman immediately agreed, saying, "Very well. Sir, I'll show you around." Following this, the foreman took Zhao Fu to look around the construction site. Zhao Fu looked around and saw a few children playing in an open space next to the construction site. They were all wearing coarse clothes, and one of them was wearing ordinary clothes. At that moment, a woman forcefully pulled the child away. The child cried and did not want to leave. A few children in coarse clothes looked at the scene in front of them innocently. They didn't understand why the woman would take her children away when they were having fun. The woman angrily raised a hand and shouted, "If you cry again, I'll hit you. They're the children of untouchables, and they're also untouchables. You can't play with them, or you might become like them in the future. Our Majesty doesn't like these people. Do you want to be someone Our Majesty doesn't like? Do you want to be a high-ranking official in the future?" These words caused the child to stop crying. At their age, they did not understand what untouchables were, but they did not want to be someone Their Majesty didn't like. Even though they were reluctant, they could only leave. The children in coarse clothes had smiles on their faces, but sensing the strange gazes around them, they lowered their heads and felt so wronged that they almost started to cry. Zhao Fu could not help but walk over and hand over a gold coin as he smiled and said, "Good children, be strong. Take this money and sell it for some good food." Chapter 1083. Big Brother. If you really give it to us, we can buy a lot of things with it. a little girl with pigtails said as she looked at Zhao Fu with her eyes wide open. Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. Just as the little girl was about to take the gold coins, an older child pulled her back and said earnestly, "Don't forget what Dad and Mom said. Don't get close to well-dressed people. They're important people, and we can't take their things, or we'll cause trouble for Dad and Mom. Think about why Dad and Mom are working so hard." Hearing this, the little girl immediately took her hand back because she thought about how hard her father and mother were working. Zhao Fu looked a bit awkward, and the foreman next to him smiled as he took out a few copper coins and gave them to the children, telling them to go and play. The children obviously knew the foreman, and they smiled as they took the money and quickly said, "Thank you, uncle." Then they ran away. Zhao Fu threw the gold coins to the foreman, and the foreman smiled as he thanked Zhao Fu. After that, the foreman took Zhao Fu to walk around the construction site. Zhao Fu saw some elderly people who were also working and helping to build the river. "Why are these elderly people here?" Zhao Fu asked curiously. Zhao Fu treated these elderly people well. Even though they were untouchables, Zhao Fu gave them easy jobs, so they shouldn't have come here. The foreman sighed and replied, "They mainly want to get more points so that they can raise their children's status. Ordinary untouchables' children can't go to school, and even if they do, they'll be discriminated against. Only by raising their status can they get normal treatment in Qin. However, points can be bought with money. These families are quite poor, so they can only come to help." Zhao Fu thought about how some people used points for profit, and he couldn't help but feel a bit angry as he asked, "Points can be bought with money?" The reason why Zhao Fu established the point system was that he wanted these people to work for Qin and be truly loyal to Qin. They would not resist. In this way they would belong to Qin's people, and Zhao Fu would truly recognize them. This was Zhao Fu's original intention. Using money to buy points completely went against Zhao Fu's original intention. Zhao Fu also remembered that this was prohibited. Only family members could trade points. He couldn't help but ask the foreman. The foreman smiled and said, "That's easy to solve. When you trade points, just say that he's your relative." "Won't the government investigate?" Zhao Fu said angrily. The foreman didn't expect Zhao Fu to be angry and explained, "How are we going to investigate? The world is very chaotic now, and the things that used to record one's identity are all gone. Moreover, in a completely new environment, no one knows anyone, so it's impossible to investigate clearly. The government can only give them a deal." Zhao Fu's anger gradually subsided. He looked at the elderly people and walked over as he said, "You can go back now. You don't have to come here anymore. Your children can be normal children." All of the elderly people present looked at Zhao Fu in disbelief. After all, the only person who could casually raise someone else's status was Great Qin's Majesty, and even some of Great Qin's high-ranking officials had to find a reason to do so. After all, Great Qin had its own laws. Even though the young man in front of them was dressed luxuriously, it was evident that he was not a high-ranking official. He was too young, and since he didn't have that status, no one believed him. "Young master, you should follow the foreman and look around. We appreciate your kindness, but please don't disturb us." As he spoke, the elderly person picked up the shoulder pole that was full of stones and walked forward with difficulty. The foreman next to him said, "That's right. Young master, where do you want to go? I'll take you there. Don't disturb them. They all need to work here to earn money and points." Zhao Fu didn't reply to the foreman's words. He thought about something and said loudly, "Now let me ask you, Qin treated you like this. Do you hate Qin? Do you hate Emperor Qin? Don't you want to resist Qin?" Zhao Fu's voice was very loud and clear, but it caused everyone to fall into a deathly silence. Everyone looked at him in disbelief. How could someone dare to say such a rebellious thing here? Does that person want to die? This is Qin's state. Isn't he trying to incite a rebellion by asking them if they want to resist? Everyone was afraid to stay away from Zhao Fu, because the consequences of Zhao Fu's words were too serious. Anyone who touched them would die. They didn't want to lose their lives because of this, so they didn't want to have any contact with Zhao Fu. The foreman's face also turned pale. He didn't expect that Zhao Fu would be so reckless and say such words. Wasn't he afraid of offending Emperor Qin and having his whole family executed? Young master, run away from Qin. I'm afraid that the soldiers will come later. Or you can kneel down now and admit to Emperor Qin that you're wrong and that you're just talking nonsense. Maybe you can live. Otherwise, you'll die. The foreman reminded him. He didn't want to have any contact with Zhao Fu, but he had brought Zhao Fu here, so Zhao Fu already had a relationship with him. He couldn't run away. Now, he could only hope that Zhao Fu would be fine so that he could be safe. Looking at the terrified people around him, Zhao Fu's expression didn't change as he asked again, "I'll ask you again. Do you hate Qin for treating you like this?" Everyone was deathly silent, and no one dared to answer Zhao Fu's question. They might die without a complete corpse. An old man next to him sighed and said, "Alas! Do we have the right to hate him? After all, we resisted so fiercely that Emperor Qin was displeased and ended up like this. Although it's a bit hard in Qin and we can't enjoy some special treatment, we can at least live a stable life here. We don't lack food or drink, and our safety is guaranteed. Emperor Qin has been very good to us. Now we just hope that he'll be happy one day and slightly lower the conditions for promotion." Clatter, clatter, clatter. As soon as the old man finished speaking, the sound of hooves sounded. Everyone's expressions changed drastically as they shouted, "Oh no! Qin soldiers are here to arrest someone. If you don't want to die, stay away from that person." The people within 1,000 meters of Zhao Fu were so scared that they automatically ran to the side. It could be seen how big of a commotion Zhao Fu had caused. "Who is it? How dare you openly incite the people to rebel? This is a capital crime." A powerful aura suddenly descended. It was an official wearing a court uniform, and hundreds of cavalrymen also arrived. Feeling this terrifying aura, the surrounding people felt incredibly scared. They all looked at Zhao Fu and thought to themselves, "This person is too bold. I don't even know how I'll die." The official looked furious. Someone had dared to say such words in the area he was in charge of. If things went south, he would be heavily punished for his improper governance. Following his gaze, the official looked at the person in the crowd. Immediately, the official's face became deathly pale, and he broke out in a cold sweat. He immediately flew down from the sky and knelt on the ground as he called out, "This official greets your majesty." Chapter 1084. Everyone looked incredibly shocked and couldn't believe what they were seeing. This noble official was kneeling on the ground, trembling, and calling the young man "Your Majesty." Was this young man the Emperor of Qin? Thinking about this, countless people hurriedly knelt on the ground and yelled, "Greetings, Your Majesty! Long live the Emperor!" The foreman who had led the way for Zhao Fu was so scared that he collapsed to the ground. He had never thought that the young man next to him was the Emperor of Qin, the most noble person in Qin. And now, he had come here to look at them, a group of commoners. The elderly people were also so scared that they knelt on the ground, not daring to even raise their head. No wonder he said that he could give commoner status. He was the Emperor of Qin. Zhao Fu glanced at them and coldly harumphed before swinging his hand and leaving. Only after Zhao Fu had left for a long time did the official and the people dare to stand up. They had never thought that their majesty would come here. Following this, news that Zhao Fu had come here quickly spread, causing another uproar. They had never thought that the emperor, who was enjoying a luxurious life in Qin's imperial palace, would come to such a remote place. Prime Minister, His Majesty has returned to the imperial palace, and he doesn't seem to be in a good mood. a guard respectfully reported to Li Si. Li Si smiled and nodded, saying, "I got it. You can leave now." Li Si had stayed by Zhao Fu's side for a long time, so he understood Zhao Fu's personality very well. Afterwards, he called Shang Yang over and headed towards Qin's imperial palace. After all, Qin needed to make some new laws. After hearing about this, the ministers hurriedly headed towards Qin's imperial palace. Seeing Li Si bring Shang Yang over, Zhao Fu couldn't help but glare at him. Li Si was becoming more and more tactful, and he didn't want to interfere in anything. Li Si dryly laughed and said, "Your Majesty, I've brought Shang Yang over. I believe that you're preparing to make new laws, and some civil officials have also arrived." Zhao Fu nodded and went to discuss this matter with the other ministers. First of all, there was a clear hierarchy. Upper-class people were upper-class people. They had their own social circles and disdained to have any contact with lower-class people. They also looked down on lower-class people. Meanwhile, lower-class people also had their own social circles and felt inferior, so they didn't dare to have any contact with upper-class people. The way they handled things was also different. The upper-class people were arrogant and not afraid of anything, while the lower-class people were timid and afraid of offending others. The situation in the outside world was like this, but Zhao Fu did not want Great Qin to be like this. After all, Great Qin was his life's work, and he wanted to create a powerful and peaceful Great Qin Empire. Article 1 Zhao Fu strictly forbade any form of discrimination. Previously, Zhao Fu had issued corresponding orders, but that was to prohibit discrimination against any race. Now, with the rapid development of Qin, the phenomenon of class was becoming more and more obvious. This was not only because of the civilian hierarchy, but also an inevitable phenomenon. It wasn't just the feudal system, even the democratic system in the real world, where everyone was equal, was unable to avoid dividing people into different classes. Zhao Fu wanted to weaken this phenomenon as much as possible, hoping that all of Qin's residents would have equal right. However, no matter if it was in the real world or the heaven-awakened world, absolute equality did not exist, so Zhao Fu could only maintain relative equality. This was what Zhao Fu wanted, and it was what Zhao Fu wanted to do. The second thing was to make the household registration system more comprehensive. Not only did all residents have to be registered, but they also had to have some basic information, such as where they lived and who their relatives were. The third thing was to investigate those who dared to fool the government in Qin. This time, Qin had made it clear that points could not be used for trading, but there were still people who took the risk and coveted the massive benefit. Zhao Fu had done some research on this. Now, 10 points could be sold for 1 gold coin. Even though a few gold coins were not much to Zhao Fu, it was a large sum to ordinary people. Normally, 10 points could only be obtained by helping Qin for 10 days, and 100 points could be used to raise one's status. This time, they had dared to fool the government in Qin and did something that Qin had clearly forbidden. As such, they had to be investigated and punished severely. Those who should be killed would be killed, and those who should be imprisoned would be imprisoned. There was no mercy at all. Finally, there was the issue of whether or not to abolish the civilian hierarchy. What surprised Li Muqing and the other player ministers was that Zhao Fu did not abolish the civilian hierarchy. A minister dressed in court clothes and giving off a scholarly aura stood out and cupped his hands as he lowered his head and said, "Your Majesty, the civilian hierarchy is a hidden danger. May I ask why you haven't abolished it?" Zhao Fu glanced at the minister and replied simply, "I have my own plans, there's no need for you to say anything else." This caused a trace of a smile to appear on the faces of the ministers who supported the commoner system. It seemed that they would be the ones to win in the end. In actuality, Zhao Fu wanted to abolish the civilian hierarchy. However, after thinking about it, he decided not to give up. After all, the system could indeed bring practical benefits and could deter a large number of people. Ideals were beautiful, but he had to consider the reality. Now that Qin had been waging wars and clearing out regions and facing world wars in the future, this system was indeed useful. Zhao Fu did not plan to abolish it, but he would reform it now. The points needed to raise one's status would be lowered to 90 points, and the elderly and children would only need 20 points. Zhao Fu also created a review system, and if one sincerely worked for Qin and was willing to submit to Qin, he would reduce the required point. If one still had thoughts of rebelling, the required points would be increased, and those who were more serious would be killed, eliminating any future troubles from Qin. Zhao Fu abolished the rule that if the untouchables committed a crime, they would be punished the same way and would not be punished more severely. At the same time, they could also obtain points, but they had to be reviewed. Since they dared to cause trouble, they might have thoughts of rebelling, so they had to be reviewed. Zhao Fu could accept those who sincerely submitted to Qin, but he had to deal with those who rebelled against Qin, and he couldn't allow them to cause any hidden dangers to Qin. Kindness and killing were equally important, which was the biggest reason why Zhao Fu gave up on abolishing the civilian hierarchy. Li Muqing and the other ministers all let out sighs of relief. Although Zhao Fu did not abolish the civilian hierarchy, he had made major reforms, which they were happy to see. After everyone finished discussing, the new rules were spread throughout Great Qin. The ones who were the happiest were, of course, those who had been labeled as criminals. Seeing Great Qin's reforms, their lives seemed to have gained a trace of hope and color. Chapter 1085. After the reforms were announced, Zhao Fu personally went to see how they were being carried out and felt quite satisfied. Zhao Fu then returned to government affairs. For the next few days, Zhao Fu continued to read through memorials and felt quite bored. He suddenly remembered that there was a historical remnant that he had not been to in a long time. This historical remnant was the assassin historical remnant, and Zhao Fu had not been able to pass the final trial. Now, he felt that there was no problem, because even if he could not pass the final trial, he could forcefully open the historical remnant and obtain the final reward. With Zhao Fu's current strength, he could do this. The assassin historical remnant was one of the earliest historical remnants that Qin had obtained. Back then, the underworld ghosts had caused Zhao Fu quite a bit of trouble, and back then, Zhao Fu did not even have a basic city seal. Now, things had changed, and Zhao Fu was the ruler of a level 11 Marquiate kingdom. His strength was unimaginable to ordinary people. Zhao Fu once again went to the assassin historical remnant and directly entered the final trial, starting the final trial. Zhao Fu slowly opened his eyes and found that he was in a gloomy market. There were many people coming and going around him, and they all had Western faces. They were tall and wore ancient European clothes, and the atmosphere was quite oppressive. Zhao Fu had become a 15 or 16-year-old boy. Zhao Fu had already gone through the trials a few times, so he had a good understanding of this. Zhao Fu's mission had been to help a major figure deliver a letter and assassinate the city lord, allowing that major figure to take control of the city and allow the commoners to live better lives. However, this was not the end. Zhao Fu also had to help him influence the entire country, causing a wave of revolution. Right now, Zhao Fu did not have any strength, and he only had the strength of a 15 or 16-year-old boy. If he fought with an adult, he definitely would not be able to defeat them. The higher-ups here were not ordinary people, and they all had battle chi or magic. Moreover, it was not a one-on-one fight but a one-on-one fight against the entire world. How could Zhao Fu pass this trial? This time, Zhao Fu did not intend to follow the original mission mode. That would take too long. First, he needed to master magic or doqi. Then, he would have to assassinate others one by one. He estimated that he would have to stay here for dozens of years. It was impossible for Zhao Fu to stay here for so long, So now Zhao Fu planned to use other means to forcefully break this illusion world. Standing at the center of the bazaar, Zhang Xian allowed the crowd to pass by as he sensed the strength in his body. Boom! A shocking explosion rang out as a large amount of blood-red light shot out from Zhao Fu's body, turning into a blood-red pillar of light that shot into the sky. The sky was gradually dyed blood-red as an aura of killing intent spread out. Zhao Fu became the center of the storm, causing massive gusts of wind to blow people and items to the ground. The scene was completely chaotic, and everyone ran in terror. Clang! A clear sword hum sounded out as a black and blood-red sword giving off a simple and unadorned aura appeared in front of Zhao Fu. It was the Emperor Killing Sword. Zhao Fu gripped the Emperor Killing Sword and a massive wave of killing intent flowed into Zhao Fu's mind, causing Zhao Fu's body to go through massive changes. His eyes and hair became blood-red and he grew fangs. A blood-red sword mark appeared on his forehead, and his entire body gave off terrifying killing intent. Swish, swish, swish. Zhao Fu swung the Emperor Killing Sword and illusory sword souls with blood-red eyes and blood-red swords appeared around Zhao Fu. Clang! Zhao Fu once again swung the sword, and the countless sword souls obeyed. They flooded out in all directions and started a massacre, killing all living creatures in the surroundings. Since this was an illusion, Zhao Fu did not have any worries and started a massacre. Blood continuously sprayed everywhere and cries continuously sounded out as Zhao Fu coldly walked towards the city hall. Bang! Before Zhao Fu could even walk through the doors, a 2-meter-tall, chubby man holding 2 short axes smashed through the doors and rushed out. He had just heard that someone was making trouble in his city, but right after rushing out, he encountered Zhao Fu. The chubby man looked incredibly shocked, as if he was someone without Stage 1 cultivation seeing a Stage 9 expert. Who are you? How can you be so terrifying? This chubby man was the city lord, and Zhao Fu did not reply to him because there was no need to reply to a dead person. Boom! Zhao Fu slashed out, and an enormous sword light containing destructive power slashed out. In that instant, the chubby man was inundated by the sword light and turned into a dismembered corpse. After killing the city lord, Zhao Fu rushed into a castle and grabbed a handsome-looking young man. This was that major figure, the person who would become a great figure in the future. Now, Zhao Fu was going to take him to conquer everywhere and would not use any slow method. The young man looked terrified and continuously resisted, calling out Zhao Fu for being a demon and a monster who killed without batting an eye. Zhao Fu was expressionless as he grabbed him and flew to another city, landing in the city hall. A terrifying aura landed on the city, and Zhao Fu's voice sounded out like thunder as he said, "This person is the owner of this city. Do you have any objections?" The skinny and weak-looking city lord had never thought that such a terrifying person would appear. He was so scared that he knelt on the ground and agreed to submit to the young man in Zhao Fu's hand. The young man looked quite confused. He had never thought that this person would do such a thing. Zhao Fu did not have the time to bother with him and flew to the next city. If they were willing to submit, they could stay. If they were not willing, he would massacre them. In just a few days, Zhao Fu had destroyed 300 or so cities and made the young man the new leader. Following this, the illusion collapsed, and he successfully broke through the final stage. His vision blurred and Zhao Fu once again returned to the passageway. It was completely dark around him, and Zhao Fu took out a illuminating pearl to light up the surroundings before continuing onwards. Finally, he came to a very large space that was filled with skeletons and gave off a dense, deathly aura. There were also 13 massive stone steels. These stone steels were black and were square. There were 12 of them that were 100 meters tall, and the one in the middle was 150 meters tall. They were spread out in a fan shape and gave off a cold and dangerous aura. There were also things on the stone steels. The 12 stone steels each had a black jade stone, and the one in the middle had an exquisite black sword stabbed into it. The 13 items all gave off a black light and gave off powerful auras, as if they were kings looking down on their surroundings. They gave off the majesty of a prince, making people want to kneel and submit. This power was naturally quite weak to Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu took a step forwards, wanting to see what these things were. Suddenly, the black jade stones on the 12 stone steels exploded out with intense black light as powerful auras spread out like wild gales, and a terrifying killing intent locked onto Zhao Fu. Chapter 1086. You're not someone who has passed the trial, you can't enter here, the 12 figures said in unison, their voices cold and ethereal. Zhao Fu ignored their words and once again took a step forwards. Swish, 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 the 12 figures simultaneously attacked, turning into black blurs as they shot forward. In the blink of an eye, they arrived 100 meters away from Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu held the emperor-killing sword and did not move as he looked at the incoming figures. A trace of disdain appeared on his face as he slashed out, sending out a massive blood-red crescent. The 12 figures were greatly startled and quickly retreated, luckily dodging Zhao Fu's attack. They had underestimated Zhao Fu's strength. The 12 figures spread out with serious expressions and surrounded Zhao Fu. They exploded out with powerful auras and stabbed their weapons into the ground. The black aura flowed into the ground, forming 12 points that resonated with each other. A black magic formation floated out from under Zhao Fu's feet as a massive barrier formed. This was the assassin domain, and it had been used by Zhao Fu and the others before. Anyone within this domain would be greatly restricted in terms of strength, speed, and agility. The 12 figures' strength greatly increased, but they were still not a match for Zhao Fu. They once again attacked together, holding their weapons as they rushed at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu did not want to continue fighting with them. Even though he felt a massive power restricting his body, Zhao Fu still raised the emperor-killing sword and unleashed his full power. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the emperor-killing sword exploded out with a large amount of blood-red light. A destructive power spread out, causing the ground to crack and covering the 12 figures. After everything calmed down, a crater that was hundreds of meters wide appeared in the ground. Above the crater, there were 12 black jades floating. Zhao Fu waved his hand and grabbed those jades. Assassin Darkness Soul Jade. A bloodline legacy item left behind by a powerful assassin. After using it, one can obtain a darkness bloodline and obtain all sorts of powerful skills and abilities. Looking at the Darkness Soul Jade, Zhao Fu smiled. This would be perfect for the 12 assassins in Qin to increase their strength. In the future, they would be able to assassinate some major figures. This darkness bloodline did not seem to be weak and was a relatively high-grade bloodline. Shing! A sword hum suddenly sounded out as the sword on the stone steel at the center turned into a ray of light and shot towards Zhao Fu incredibly quickly. It was like a black line as it shot towards Zhao Fu's throat. At that moment, Zhao Fu's sword slashed, sending out a sharp blood-red light, and it was sent flying. The exquisite black sword flew out and gave off a powerful aura as it flew through the air. The sword gave off a faint black light as a woman with a graceful figure wearing a hooded garment appeared. Even though it was impossible to see her appearance, from the side of her face, one could tell that she was quite beautiful. Suddenly, the woman held the exquisite sword and disappeared, reappearing behind Zhao Fu in an instant. She slashed towards the back of Zhao Fu's neck. Bang! In that instant, Zhao Fu's emperor's domain spread out with immense power, sending the woman flying back 10 or so meters. The woman used her foot to stop herself from flying back and wanted to attack Zhao Fu again. However, Zhao Fu did not even look at her. He stretched out a hand behind him, and countless chains containing terrifying power shot out. The woman continuously dodged, but in the end she was bound by the chains and hung in the air. A trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face as he walked over to her. The woman vigorously struggled, and seeing Zhao Fu walk over, she glared at Zhao Fu and said, "You didn't pass the trial. You destroyed it with brute force. You can't obtain the legacy." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I don't want to go through so much trouble. With the killing intent I obtained, I could have easily passed. Now that my strength far surpasses yours, why should I follow your rules?" The woman coldly replied, "Then you can't obtain the legacy." Zhao Fu ignored her and stretched out his hand towards her chest. She knew that Zhao Fu was not acting like a pervert. Zhao Fu's hand gave off countless traces of Emperor's Domain's aura, covering the woman. She slowly disappeared, leaving behind an exquisite sword. The sword was bound by countless chains and continuously struggled. Zhao Fu grabbed the hilt and sent his Emperor's power into the sword, forcing it to submit. Following this, Zhao Fu looked at the sword's information with interest. This sword was called the Assassination, a sword of the Way of Kings, and it was the weapon of the King of Assassins. It had King's power and greatly boosted one's agility and aura concealment. The sword itself was a level 1 Saint armament, and it was quite powerful. However, facing Zhao Fu, it was unable to retaliate at all and was easily subdued by Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu looked around and found that the 13 massive stone steels were also treasures. Every day they would condense darkness soul jades. These darkness soul jades were not as powerful as the 12 from before, and they were weaker versions. Moreover, Zhao Fu also found a platform behind the 13 stone steels. There was a black orb floating on it, which was most likely the core of the historical remnant. If one could control it, they would be able to control everything in the historical remnant. Zhao Fu did not hesitate and stretched out his hand to conquer it. However, what Zhao Fu did not expect was that a massive wave of energy flowed into Zhao Fu's body, and a large amount of information flowed into Zhao Fu's mind. All of this information was related to the assassin profession. This was most likely the legacy that the woman had mentioned. Zhao Fu looked through the information and found that there was an introduction to the assassin profession. He found that the assassin legacy had belonged to a large faction in the central domain, but in the end it had fallen to such a state. With Zhao Fu's current strength, he very rarely used the assassin profession. However, it was quite convenient in certain situations, and it would be much easier to use the assassin profession. As such, Zhao Fu decided to properly use this power. Now that Zhao Fu had the core of the historical remnant, he had complete control over the historical remnant. Zhao Fu found that the underworld ghost domain's underworld ghosts could only rely on the historical remnant and could not be nurtured, making him feel quite disappointed. After all, if he nurtured the underworld ghosts, they would become a powerful offensive force for the Qin government. However, it seemed that this would not be possible. However, now that he had completely conquered the assassin legacy, he had resolved one of his worries. After taking care of everything, Zhao Fu returned to the Qin government and called over Zhao Sha, Lu Mei Wu Qian, and the others. He gave them the darkness soul jades that he had just obtained, which would allow their strength to increase by many times and allow them to obtain even more powerful assassin skills. Only 11 people had come, and there was still an assassin soul jade that he had not used yet. There were only 11 assassin legatees left, and Tuoba Qing had been one of them. However, she had left the Qin government and no one knew where she was. Chapter 1087. After returning to Qin City, Zhao Fu did not continue to deal with political matters. This was already the 6th year, and Zhao Fu felt that the heaven domain boundary was getting closer and closer to disappearing. Zhao Fu felt quite uneasy. After clearing out all of the regions in the human world, they would be able to launch a war to unify the world. The fish scale world was also developing quite well, so there was no need to pay too much attention to it. The dark demon world could only remain as it was and could not do much else. Right now, the weakest areas in Qin City were the factions outside the Legacy Land. They felt that they were still too weak, and if the Heaven Domain boundary disappeared, they would not be able to play a big role. Zhao Fu felt that he should develop the Lulai Kingdom and the Blue Wolf Kingdom. The Lulai Kingdom was the grassy kingdom, and it was a world above the human world. It was an enemy that they had to face head-on, and it was the most dangerous. They had to firmly control it to prevent it from going out of control. The Blue Wolf Kingdom had already been destroyed, and it was now residing in the Lulai Kingdom. Zhao Fu wanted to help it rebuild its kingdom and use it as a chess piece to do something for the half-beast world in the future. Zhao Fu gathered his generals to see what they should do. Of course, he also gathered information about the Lulai Kingdom and its surroundings. Right now, the Lulai Kingdom and the 3 surrounding kingdoms were working together to occupy the Blue Wolf Kingdom's territory, opposing the 3 half-beast kingdoms. Now, the 3 half-beast kingdoms hated Zhao Fu's 4 kingdoms to death. Last time, they had expended so much effort and suffered many casualties, but in the end, they had not obtained as much as the 4 kingdoms, and they had been enraged by Zhao Fu's 4 kingdoms. They had been preparing to attack Zhao Fu's 4 kingdoms, but Zhao Fu and the 4 kingdoms were not afraid at all. After all, the 4 kingdoms combined were definitely more powerful than the 3 of them, and they had been facing off against each other for quite some time. Right now, Zhao Fu had 2 choices. The first was to ally with the other 3 kingdoms to destroy the 3 half-beast kingdoms, and the second was to ally with the other 3 kingdoms to trap the grassy kingdom and have the half-beast kingdoms fight with them before reaping the benefits. The first option was to destroy the 3 half-beast kingdoms, which was quite a big move. It would be an official invasion of the half-beast world, which would definitely attract the attention of the half-beast world, and they might even send troops to chase them away. This was what Zhao Fu was most worried about. A world's power was simply too great, and even Qin had to be careful. Moreover, he could not reveal Qin's identity, as the Lulai Kingdom might be destroyed in the end. As such, Zhao Fu could only give up on this chess piece. Since the first method didn't work, he could only use the second method. Because of this, Zhao Fu and his generals discussed in detail before Zhao Fu left Qin City with a big smile and a large number of city lords and wyverns. In the deep blue night sky, a bright moon hung in the sky, giving off bright moonlight that dispelled the darkness of the land. The surroundings were completely silent, as if everything had fallen into a deep sleep. Zhao Fu arrived at a royal city, and he had never thought that he would be able to use the assassin legacy he had just obtained. This was the center of a kingdom's fate, and the king had the kingdom's fate. It was almost impossible to assassinate a king here, as even the slightest bit of danger would be detected by the king, making it almost impossible to succeed. Before, Zhao Fu had attempted to assassinate a king, but he had waited until he was patrolling and not in a royal city. Otherwise, if he stayed in a royal city, as soon as there was danger, he would activate the kingdom defensive formation, and the various city lords and officials would sense it. If he had countless corps, they would be able to force Zhao Fu into retreat, making it impossible to assassinate a king. However, things were different now. Assassins naturally focused on assassination, and they had all sorts of methods to assassinate kings. The assassin legacy that Zhao Fu had obtained included how to assassinate a king. He needed a prince from a kingdom, and Zhao Fu had secretly captured him. There were many princes in a kingdom, so Zhao Fu naturally did not have to expend much effort. Back then, the prince had been doing it with 5 or 6 flirtatious women in a brothel, but he could not last for a few minutes and collapsed on the bed, gasping for breath. The flirtatious women were not satisfied at all, and they continued to moan in the prince's embrace, but the prince did not react at all. Zhao Fu snuck in and knocked those women unconscious before silently bringing the prince here. Looking at the unconscious prince, Zhao Fu's expression did not change, and he took out the assassination sword that he had just obtained. The assassination sword had already been tamed by Zhao Fu, but its resistance had been quite intense, and it had taken quite a bit of effort for Zhao Fu to subdue it. Zhao Fu stabbed the assassination sword into the prince's chest, and the assassination sword gave off a suction force that sucked away a large amount of the prince's blood. His body gradually withered until he became a desiccated corpse. The assassination sword absorbed a large amount of blood, and countless blood-red runes appeared on its body. After these blood-red runes appeared, they swam into Zhao Fu's body like tadpoles, and more runes appeared on Zhao Fu's body before hiding within Zhao Fu's body. Now, Zhao Fu had used that method, using the prince's blood as a disguise to trick the kingdom's fate. Now, Zhao Fu's aura was that of the prince's, and it also contained a small portion of the prince's fate. This fate was temporarily kept by the assassination sword, and it could be used many times. It was an extremely exquisite assassination technique, and it was specially prepared for assassinating a king. After temporarily putting away the prince's desiccated corpse, Zhao Fu could now enter the palace without worry. With this layer of aura covering him, there was nothing for Zhao Fu to worry about. There were 8 high-grade soldiers standing guard outside the palace. In order to not alert the king within the palace, Zhao Fu had to silently kill the 8 of them. Zhao Fu thought about it and did not hesitate to use the assassination sword's skill. Zhao Fu held the assassination sword and closed his eyes, sending his emperor's power into it. The assassination sword slightly trembled, and Zhao Fu suddenly opened his eyes. The assassination sword gave off a black light, and a formless aura spread out as 8 black figures rushed out of Zhao Fu's body. The 8 figures shot out, and in the next second, they appeared behind the 8 guards. The 8 guards sensed danger and looked incredibly shocked. Before they could do anything, the 8 figures were like shadows as they took out daggers and slit their throat. A trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face as he pushed open the door and entered. A while later, a system announcement shook the entire kingdom. Countless people were woken up from their dreams, looking incredibly shocked. Their king had died? What was going on? Countless people could not understand what had happened, but the sudden death of a king would shake the entire kingdom, and their fate would go through massive changes. The ministers and generals, as well as members of the royal family, all rushed to the palace. The death of their king caused them to fall into a state of panic. Who would be the next king? None of this was certain, but anyone wanted to sit on the throne, and everyone wanted to try. Chapter 1088. After Zhao Fu succeeded, he immediately went to another grassy kingdom, which was one of the 3 kingdoms around the Lalai kingdom. Before, these 3 kingdoms had been waiting for the Lalai kingdom to be destroyed, so their relationship with the Lalai kingdom was quite strained. After Zhao Fu took control of the Lalai kingdom, he had taken a step back and lowered his tone, causing his relationship with the 3 kingdoms to improve. At most, they were just partners, so Zhao Fu did not feel any guilt killing them. After coming to the 2nd kingdom, Zhao Fu used the same method to assassinate the king of this kingdom, once again sending the kingdom into chaos. Various factions tried to seize power, causing the commoners to feel uneasy, and the kingdom fell into chaos. The kingdom's fate fell into chaos. It could be seen just how important a king was to a kingdom. The kings of 2 kingdoms had been assassinated in a row, and they had both been in the royal palace. This caused the surrounding kingdoms to panic, and countless cities and corps were moved to the royal cities, afraid that they would become the next target. Just who had done this? To be able to assassinate a king in a royal palace, where the kingdom's fate was gathered, this was not something that an ordinary person could do. It seemed that no one in the surrounding 10 or so worlds had this ability, so where had such a terrifying person suddenly appeared? Why had he assassinated 2 kings in a row, and what was the relationship between them? Everyone was very unclear about this. Now, they could only feel fear and went into a defensive state. A kingdom's king was undoubtedly the most important thing to a kingdom, and if something happened to him, it would be terrible. The surrounding 10 or so kingdoms were all like this, and it was evident how important this matter was. After all, that assassin was simply too terrifying. He had been able to assassinate a king in a royal palace. Right now, even the kings did not dare to leave the royal city, as even with the royal city's protection, they could still be assassinated. The 2 kings next to the Lalai kingdom had been assassinated, causing Lu Yuyu's face to become pale. She knew the 2 kings who had died, and they had been right next to the Lalai kingdom. It was highly likely that the Lalai kingdom would be the next target. Lu Yuyu had already sent a large number of city lords back to the royal city, and the various corps were stationed in the surroundings. However, Lu Yuyu was still worried that with the Lalai kingdom's current strength, they would not be able to stop that terrifying person. The Lalai kingdom did not have much strength left, and they had used everything they could. If that person found the Lalai kingdom, there would be nothing they could do. Their only hope was for Zhao Fu to return to the Lalai kingdom. With Zhao Fu's terrifying power, he would definitely protect them, and Lu Yuyu was completely confident. However, the crux was that Zhao Fu was not here, and she did not know that the terrifying person who could assassinate a king in the royal palace was Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu had originally planned to assassinate the 3rd king after assassinating the 2nd king, but the commotion caused by the news brought him great inconvenience. Because the defenses were so tight, it made it much more difficult for him to assassinate them. With his current strength, would he be able to forcefully destroy an entire kingdom? Zhao Fu wasn't sure if he had the ability to do so, but if he did, it would probably cause another sensation. There were too many variables to this plan, and it could cause a lot of trouble for his future plans. If there was a better way, he definitely would not use it. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu looked towards the half-beast kingdom. Zhao Fu's original plan was to assassinate the 3 grassy kings and cause chaos in the 3 kingdoms so that the half-beast kingdom would attack them. Afterwards, he would wait for the half-beast kingdom to attack them. Now, he could only carry out his plan ahead of time and allow things to settle down for a few days. Zhao Fu returned to the Lalai kingdom and started to prepare for the future. At first, Lu Yuyu was overjoyed when she saw Zhao Fu return to the Lalai kingdom. With Zhao Fu there, the Lalai kingdom would be safe, and she would no longer have to worry about that terrifying assassin. Her son's life would also be safe. However, when she found out that Zhao Fu was that terrifying assassin, she was so scared that her legs became weak. Afterwards, Zhao Fu told her about his plan, and Lu Yuyu could not help but feel excited. If Zhao Fu could do it, the Lalai kingdom would become a Marquiate kingdom. Marquiate kingdoms were incredibly rare, and they were many times more powerful than ordinary barony kingdoms. When ordinary barony kingdoms saw Marquiate kingdoms, they would have to lower their heads and not dare to offend them. Before, Lu Yuyu did not even dare to think about it. With her strength, maintaining the Lalai kingdom's current state would already be quite good. However, now that the impossible was about to happen, Lu Yuyu naturally felt incredibly excited. At the same time, she understood that all of this was because of Zhao Fu. If it wasn't for Zhao Fu, none of this would have been possible. She was incredibly curious as to just what Zhao Fu's true identity was. However, she did not even need to think about it to know that Zhao Fu's identity was absolutely terrifying, and it surpassed what she could accept. Otherwise, he would not have the ability to do such a thing. Lu Yuyu did her best to cooperate with Zhao Fu, and she trusted that Zhao Fu would be able to do it. After a few days of peace, the disturbance from the assassination of a king gradually died down. Nothing had happened over the past few days, and everyone let out a sigh of relief. They felt that they had made a big deal out of nothing. Just a random person could scare them to such an extent. Seeing that the situation was about right, Zhao Fu started to carry out his plan. Before, the 4 grassy kingdoms had attacked the Blue Wolf Kingdom together, and they had agreed to jointly build defenses to defend against the 3 half-beast kingdoms. Now, the 4 kingdoms were each defending a part of the defensive line. What Zhao Fu needed to do was to open up his own defensive line and let the 3 half-beast kingdoms in. Zhao Fu had built a second defensive line, and he had 90% of the Lalai kingdom's soldiers there. There were also a large number of Qin's city lords hiding nearby, or else Zhao Fu would not have dared to do this. After all, the 3 kingdoms could directly attack the Lalai kingdom and not the other kingdoms. With the Lalai kingdom's former strength, it was almost impossible for it to defend against the 3 kingdoms, so what Zhao Fu was doing was incredibly dangerous. However, now that the 2 kingdoms near the Lalai kingdom had fallen into chaos, and the other kingdoms had opened up their defensive line, the other side would not have made any preparations. Attacking them would be unexpected, and it would be very effective. Moreover, the Lalai kingdom had long since made preparations, and adding on their firm defenses, it was obvious that attacking the other 2 kingdoms would be quite easy. Zhao Fu ordered the soldiers at the front lines to retreat to the second defensive line, and he secretly leaked this information to the half-beast kingdom's spies, letting them know that the Lalai kingdom was retreating. As expected, the half-beast people were like wolves that had seen delicious food. Their gazes were savage, and they drooled as they entered through the opening that Zhao Fu had made. At first, they had wanted to attack the Lalai kingdom first, but seeing that the Lalai kingdom had made preparations, they immediately turned to the other 2 kingdoms. The kings of these 2 kingdoms had just died, and their kingdoms were in mourning. There was an intense competition for a new king, and the kingdoms in this state were definitely weaker than normal. Chapter 1089. The 2 kingdoms' defenses were quite weak, so the 3 armies split into 2 armies and simultaneously attacked the 2 kingdoms. They were finally going to take revenge for what had happened that day, and they had been holding back for a long time. The 3 armies looked incredibly excited as they attacked the 2 kingdoms. They planned to first destroy the 2 kingdoms before destroying the Lalai kingdom and the other kingdom. Even though they did not know why the Lalai kingdom would do such a stupid thing, this was clearly beneficial to them. More importantly, the Lalai kingdom could not defeat the 3 of them at all, so they did not have to worry about any schemes from the Lalai kingdom. After the 2 armies of half-beasts attacked the 2 kingdoms, they started a massacre and looted everything. The 2 kingdoms were greatly shocked and quickly mobilized their armies to defend. Under such a great crisis, the new king ascended to the throne. However, the fate of the 2 kingdoms was not stable yet, and the people were quite unsettled. Morale was also quite low. The 2 armies suddenly attacked from the sides with unstoppable momentum. They continuously conquered region after region, and the 2 kingdoms continuously sent reinforcements, but they were still unable to stop the 3 armies. In the end, they paid a great price to temporarily stop the 3 armies outside the 3rd defensive line. The situation was quite urgent, and if the 3rd defensive line was broken through, the 2 kingdoms would not be able to defend against the 3 armies in the future. The 2 kingdoms immediately sent people to the surrounding kingdoms to ask for reinforcements, but it was not very effective. By now, they had experienced what it felt like to be completely alone. They hated the person who had assassinated their king to death, and they hated the shameless Lalai kingdom to death. Their ugly faces were simply infuriating. The 3 half-beast kingdoms were afraid that the 2 kingdoms would receive reinforcements, and they would not be able to destroy the 2 kingdoms. As such, they had to finish this battle quickly and furiously attack at all costs. In order to seize this time, the 3 half-beast kings personally attacked, sending terrifying attacks towards the grassy city lord. The defensive line was almost broken through, and the 2 new kings were forced to act. Below, countless soldiers clashed. A half-beast held a large saber and cruelly rushed up, chopping a grassy city lord in half. Another grassy city lord roared as he stabbed his spear into a half-beast's chest. A half-beast madly howled as his hands turned into claws and tore apart a grassy city lord. Another grassy city lord looked terrified, but he still rushed up with his saber. One of the half-beasts chopped off a grassy person's head with a savage look on his face as he wildly laughed. Another grassy person attacked without any regard for his life, and in the end, he died together with the half-beast. The sounds of battle were deafening, and the sounds of metal clanging rang out incessantly. Blood splattered everywhere, and corpses lay on the ground. The battlefield on the ground was extremely tragic. However, the half-beastmen were clearly in an advantageous position. Not only did they have more people, but their morale was also high. On the other hand, the grassy people's morale was quite low, and their numbers were smaller. More and more grassy people were dying. In the air, the city lords and generals from both sides started to fight. Their battle was quite terrifying, and powerful gales were kicked up as they fought intensely in the air. No one dared to get close. The battle between the two kings was abnormally intense as well, giving off terrifying ripples that could cause people to feel terror. However, it was still the half-beast king who was stronger. After all, he had powerful cultivation and rich battle experience, while the grassy king was weaker. Clang! A half-beast king slashed out with his claws, sending a grassy king flying. The new grassy king flew back dozens of meters before stopping. There were now 5 claw marks on his chest, and blood flowed out. Boom! A massive aura exploded out as the new king used his nation armament. A log that gave off intense green light appeared, dyeing the sky green as a terrifying shockwave spread out in all directions. Seeing the new king use his nation armament, the half-beast king coldly laughed and also used his nation armament. A terrifying aura rushed into the sky as a half-beast statue giving off terrifying power appeared, causing the surrounding air to seem to freeze. Boom! The two of them once again started a massive battle, resulting in a terrifying gale. Terrifying auras spread out, causing everyone in the surroundings to feel as if they had fallen into an icy cavern, and their bodies uncontrollably trembled. Roar! An hour or so later, the half-beast king gave off an intense light and turned into a massive wolf that was hundreds of meters long. It raised its head to the sky and roared before rushing at the new grassy king. The new grassy king's expression fell, and he swung his sword, sending out a massive green gale that ferociously slashed towards the massive wolf. The massive wolf roared and exploded out with even more intense light as it smashed towards the green storm. It ferociously charged forwards, causing the green storm to scatter in all directions, and the massive wolf charged towards the new grassy king. Bang! The grassy king was smashed back into the ground, creating a massive crater. The new king was covered with blood, and his aura became much weaker. It was not just the grassy king's side that had lost. The grassy city lords and soldiers had also suffered heavy losses. The ground was littered with grassy people's corpses, and the new grassy king could only turn and run. The half-beast army broke through the third defensive line and suffered heavy losses. However, they were still victorious in the end, and the army started to rampage through the grassy kingdom. By now, the grassy kingdom could not resist at all, and its residents ran in all directions. Even the king was about to relocate the royal city and escape to another place. The grassy kingdom had been destroyed. The other grassy kingdom had also been destroyed, and it was in an even more miserable state. The new king had to face the attacks of 2 half-beast kings and was unable to escape. He was killed by the 2 kings, and the grassy army was completely routed. After these 2 kingdoms were destroyed, the surrounding kingdoms did not hold back and took this opportunity to take the territory of these 2 kingdoms. They also pretended to be kind and accepted the residents of these 2 kingdoms. This was the reason why they did not send troops to help. After all, in this world, profit was the most important thing. No one cared if you were of the same race or something else. Sending troops to help the grassy kingdom would not bring them any benefits, and they might even suffer heavy losses. It was a thankless task, so how could they go back to help? Wouldn't it be better to reap benefits for free here? Zhao Fu smiled as he looked at the report in his hands. From the very beginning, Zhao Fu had been paying attention to the situation on the battlefield. He had seen the 3 half-beast armies wreak havoc in the grassy kingdom, and they had already conquered a large amount of land and cities. They were now deep into the grassy kingdom, and it was time for Zhao Fu to act. Zhao Fu immediately gave the order for all of his soldiers to attack and cut off the 3 kingdoms' armies' retreat. This time, Zhao Fu could mobilize 60 million soldiers and 10,000 or so city lords, including Qin City's city lord. However, his identity was still hidden, and he did not reveal himself. He also had the Blue Wolf Kingdom's soldiers. Chapter 1090. This kingdom was most likely furious at Zhao Fu for letting the half-beasts in, and it was possible that they wanted to take this opportunity to destroy the Lalai kingdom. As such, they had to be on guard. The 3 half-beast kingdoms had each sent 40 million soldiers, which added up to 120 million soldiers. After destroying 2 kingdoms, they had lost 40 million or so soldiers, and they only had around 80 million soldiers. Zhao Fu's army quickly blocked off the half-beast kingdom's path of retreat, causing the half-beast army to feel quite startled. They had never thought that the Lalai kingdom would have hidden so much power. After all, this was the grassy world, and the 3 of them did not dare to stay here for too long. Moreover, if their path of retreat was blocked, the consequences would be severe, so they immediately turned around and tried to break through the blockade before sending another army to take control of the conquered regions. The 2 armies soon officially clashed, each giving off a powerful aura, causing the surroundings to fall silent. Not a single creature could resist the 2 massive auras wreaking havoc. On the Lalai Kingdom's side, Zhao Fu was in charge. Zhao Fu stood in the sky with thousands of city lords and generals behind him. On the half-beast kingdom's side, there were 3 half-beast kings and 3,000 or so city lords. Comparatively speaking, this side was much more powerful. Not only did they have more soldiers, but they also had more city lords than the Lalai kingdom. One of the half-beast king's eyes became slightly cold as he looked at the half-beast woman standing behind Zhao Fu. She was actually the king of the Blue Wolf Kingdom, and he coldly harumphed. This king thought that you ran off to somewhere and joined with the grassy people. It seems that they were the biggest reason why your Blue Wolf Kingdom was destroyed. Song Xuanu did not reply to him, and coldly looked at the 3 people in front of her. They were the main culprits behind the Blue Wolf Kingdom's destruction, and because they had submitted to Zhao Fu, they naturally could not feel any hatred towards Zhao Fu. However, their hatred towards the 3 people in front of them continued to surge. A slightly chubby half-beast king coldly laughed as he said, "This king already said that if you come and serve this king will take care of you in the future. Right now, you're still this king's people." The 3rd half-beast king looked at Zhao Fu. They had met Zhao Fu before, but at that time, Zhao Fu had been standing to the side and hadn't said anything. At first, the 3 of them hadn't paid much attention to him and felt that he wasn't a very powerful person. However, now, Zhao Fu had dared to bring soldiers to block their path of retreat. He was the one who had let the 3 of them in and destroyed the 2 grassy kingdoms. It could be said that Zhao Fu was the greatest contributor to this battle. The king lightly laughed as he said, "With the Lalai kingdom's current strength, do you think you can defeat the 3 of us? What wishful thinking! You're the one courting death. If you kneel down and surrender now, the 3 of us can spare you." The 3 of them did not directly attack. Firstly, they wanted to take back the Lalai kingdom, and secondly, they had already given the order for all of the soldiers stationed in the 3 kingdoms to attack the Lalai kingdom from behind. This way, the Lalai kingdom would definitely lose, and they would be able to destroy the Lalai kingdom as well. Just thinking about devouring 3 kingdoms made them feel quite happy. The 3 kingdoms still had around 30 million soldiers left, and they were quickly heading over. They would arrive soon. Zhao Fu coldly laughed as he said, It should be the three of you kneeling down and submitting to me. You. One of the half-beast kings was infuriated and wanted to attack, but he was stopped by the people beside him. They were just stalling for time. Zhao Fu did not want to continue talking with them, so he gave the order to attack. Even though Zhao Fu had brought a large number of City Lord wyverns, Zhao Fu did not want to reveal too much of his strength. As such, he did not use them too much. Currently, Zhao Fu only had 2,000 or so City Lords appear, which was the same number as the enemy City Lords. As for the other City Lords, they went to destroy the reinforcements. Boom! 10 skeleton cavalrymen giving off an aura of disaster raised their black swords, exploding out with 10 pillars of black light that shot into the sky. Clouds swirled as large amounts of heaven and earth essence chi gathered, and a massive black magic formation appeared, giving off a boundless aura of death. Roar! 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 Ear-piercing roars sounded out as skeletons suddenly appeared around the half-beast army. Sensing the aura of life, they madly rushed at the half-beast army. There were at least 20 to 30 million of them, and they attacked like a white wave. Zhao Fu could not reveal too much of his strength right now, as that would attract too much attention. Zhao Fu used the undead disaster that he had not used in a long time. These skeletons were from the legacy world, as most people in the outside world were affected by the curse of rest and could not become undead. Seeing so many undead appear, the 3 half-beast kings were given a big fright, and the soldiers hurriedly defended. Shield-bearers walked up and formed a shield wall, while the spearmen and attackers prepared to attack. However, at that moment, the half-beast soldiers and grassy people under Zhao Fu's control started to attack. The infantry and cavalrymen gave off a massive aura as they ferociously flooded towards the half-beast army. The half-beast shield-bearers also stepped out, and the infantry and archers worked together to form a defensive formation as they waited for Zhao Fu's army to charge. Boom! 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 Waves of powerful auras gathered together, forming massive creatures that gave off terrifying mites. The core creation appeared. This time, Zhao Fu had brought out 7 core, while the other side had brought 5 core condensation and 2 had stayed behind. Adding them together, there were still 15 core condensation. Zhao Fu's core condensation was surrounded by a few core condensation, and the city lords turned into rays of terrifying light as they clashed, unleashing a terrifying battle. Go and meddle with the core condensation. Leave those 3 to me. Zhao Fu looked around and found that the core condensation was the weakest, so he ordered Song Xuanu to go and help. Song Xuanu nodded and rushed towards the core condensation. Zhao Fu took out the Death Disaster Sword and looked at the 3 half-beast kings. He did not hesitate to explode out with his full power, and a terrifying aura spread out like a storm. This caused the 3 half-beast kings' expressions to fall because they felt terror. They had never thought that Zhao Fu would be so powerful. Shing! A massive sword hum sounded out as Zhao Fu slashed out, sending out a massive gray crescent that sent the 3 half-beast kings flying back with shocking momentum. The 3 half-beast kings flew back 100 or so meters before stopping and coughed up a large mouthful of blood, looking incredibly shocked. They looked at each other and immediately used their nation armaments with their full power, or else they would not be a match for Zhao Fu. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.